is rifled into center. Goldie waved around third. Cruz's throw is going to be cut off. We're tied one apiece. Swing, drive, left center. Downey does it again. Goldschmidt will score. That rolls to the wall. Donovan has a double, and the Cardinals have the lead. What an at-bat for Brendan Donovan.
That's what it sounded like last night on Bally Sports Midwest. Brendan Donovan, one of my favorite players on this roster, a guy that I said last offseason, guys, I'm just not trading him. I'm not trading Brendan Donovan. This is a guy that you build around, not somebody that you trade, because he is more valuable to your team than he would be on the trade market. When we are having all those conversations about trading for a starting pitcher, I wasn't having it. I would said, if you want to talk about Newport, I'm willing to have the conversation. I get concerned, though. Gorman, same thing. I kind of like having all these left-handed options. Now that we are here, I think we've arrived at a place where Brendan Donovan is officially a key member of the Cardinals core. I feel very confident in what he is and what he's going to be. Over the past 3 seasons now, Alex, he has an OPS of 773, 787, 756. Those are his 3 full seasons in the big leagues and what he's done. That is the consistency that this Cardinals team has been craving, especially coming from a left-handed bat, especially coming from a guy that hits for average and gets on base. If you want him to be a leadoff hitter for you, I think he can be that for you next year again. If you wanted him to bat second, I think he can be that for you next year. If you wanted him to bat fifth, because of the high average and him coming through in those clutch situations, as we saw last night, I think he could end up being one of those kinds of hitters for you as well. Where I've arrived with him, he's 27 years old. He's about to start this offseason his first year of arbitration, which means he has 3 years remaining under club control. I'm ready to extend him. I know I get I get a little willy-nilly out here with my extensions. I'm handing out extensions to everybody. I have reined that in a bit. You guys know, last year I didn't say extend anybody. This is the guy that I'm willing to do it. I don't think it's going to make you break the bank. I don't think you're going to have to go out there and give him like $100 million. This, to me, is the Matt Carpenter extension 2.0. And not the second one that everybody hated. The first one that was super reasonable, similar to what they did with Colton Wong. Lock him in for the next 5 years. Get the prime years of his major league career. Make him happy. Make him know, hey, you are a member of our core. We want to continue to build around you. We're locking this in place. We're setting it and forgetting it. I don't know if you're going to be a long-term second baseman or outfielder or first baseman or just a utility guy that plays a little bit of everywhere. But you're definitely going to be here. You're going to be a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. To me, Brendan Donovan has earned that based upon his performance each of the past 3 seasons.
Slow down, Frisky Cat. Let's not start throwing out millions of dollars to people right now for a team that's going to be around 500, if not below 500 for back-to-back years. I won't disagree with you because Brendan Donovan is a core member of this team. He's a permanent fixture in this roster moving forward. I think your core is pretty obvious in terms of Brendan Donovan, Alec Burleson, Mason Wynn, Jordan Walker. If you want to put Nolan Gorman in this one, I won't. I can understand that. But if you're going off of position players, I think those are your core pieces. I'm with you on Brendan Donovan. I just don't feel the need to extend anybody right now. I don't know if anybody really needs an extension for this Cardinals team because you're just in this average territory. And for me, Brendan Donovan is really never going to break the bank. So if I've got 3 more years where he's under control, I'll walk this up a little bit more because Matt Carpenter, that first extension, you started to see the power. I don't know if the power with Brendan Donovan really ever gets there to the point where it's like, man, we got to extend this guy because he's going to go to the market and he's going to make us pay to where we can't afford him. I'm fine with Brendan Donovan just playing this out moving forward with the team because I think he realizes he's a part of this core. I think I need everything else to figure itself out and establish itself.
The thing that it does, though, and T-Bone, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I think I know where you're going to go, but it's fine. The thing that it does, though, if you're the Cardinals, is it locks in cost certainty. You know exactly what that cost is going to be year to year because you don't have to play the arbitration game. And the other thing that it does is, man, think about this from a human perspective. Like, if you're Brendan Donovan, yeah, you know you're going to get paid via the arbitration process because it rewards on-base percentage because on-base percentage is calculated in wins above replacement, and he does pretty well in that regard. This year, he's at a little more than a 2-win player over the first 3 seasons of his career. He's accumulated 8 wins above replacement. That's pretty damn good for a guy that's played 360 Major League games at this point. So he's going to get rewarded via arbitration in a way that we might not even necessarily expect at this point. But if you're the Cardinals, you can say, hey, you'll get $2 million next year, like $6 million the year after that, and then 10, 10, 10, something like that. You're going to give him like a 5-year deal worth $50 million, something around there. That's not an exceedingly high bar to clear, and this team can absolutely make that work. It makes him comfortable with where he's at. He never has to worry about, hey, am I going to make the money that I'm deserving of? It sets that aside for you. So, T-Bone, now tell me why you wouldn't want to do it.
No, I agree with Alec. I don't think he's ever going to break the bank, and I'm not worried about giving him a contract extension. I do agree he's part of the core. Let's not jump to conclusions, though, and start paying the guy, though, because there is a lot of things that need to be worked out with this Cardinals organization to get things back on track, and I'm not locking a guy into a contract
But he's
extension.
part of it. He's part of what gets you back
But
on
I
track.
also know that in, 2 years, if it's still not on track, he's a guy that's being traded. To me, he's
But
not
that
a guy.
contract is tradable.
I'm not giving him a contract extension. I'm not locking myself into a deal with Brendan Donovan. And I understand the whole thing of it makes him feel comfortable. No, get out there and play baseball.
What's the downside to this?
I think the downside is you end up with a contract that so for example, you say $10 million, I don't know, year 2 of that contract. He may not be a $10 million player in ARB at that point when
He probably won't be. He'll probably be like a $7 or $8 million. So you got $2 million that you're
$3 million
overpaying for.
that I can use on something else on the roster.
Oh, $3 million. That's going to be what we're really talking about.
We know the Cardinals are
That's like
penny and
$500
diamond.
million to this team.
But the thing that's different, though, is what I'm saying. Year 3, you're paying less than what he's likely to get in arbitration because of the way that the ARB system works. It goes up annually, and so by year 3, you're paying well below, probably a few $million below what he's going to make. And then year 4 and 5, you're getting significantly below what he's going to potentially make in free agency.
See,
And you get to keep him for the entire course of his prime under one contract. You just don't have to worry about it. You can set it and forget it, put that on your books, and it's Brendan Donovan. I'm not super worried about this guy going through a bunch of downward spiral. His batter profile is good. It's worth building around. He gets on base at an exceptionally high clip because he walks all the bleeping time, and he hits for average. It's there's not a significant downside, and the upside still remains that, hey, he could be a 15 to 17 home run guy on an annual basis as well.
I don't see a downside with it. I'm just not at the point where if I'm the team, I'm going to start looking at handing out extensions this season. I think before I start handing out extensions and saying this guy is a part of the future and we're paying him for that, I need the team to kind of have a clearer picture. And so that's why I don't see a downside of doing it. And if they do it, I'm not going to be upset because Brendan Donovan's a consistent player. He's been so for 3 years. I'm just not at the point with a team that's been below average for 2 straight seasons or average at best to sit there and say, well, let's start locking guys up. I think right now you need to play it very cool in terms of let's see what the landscape of this roster looks like because you don't know. Maybe you get to the point where, I understand Brendan Donovan is kind of one of those guys that you just need on your roster. But
He's
what
a
if
leader? He gets on base. He helps you win. He does all of the little things correctly.
What if you
Hey, congrats, he'll be back next year.
What if
I
you
can't
get more
imagine
guys?
a player that is more deserving of
What
a
if you
contract
get more guys that
extension?
establish themselves like a Brendan Donovan? What if J.J. Weatherholt becomes much
Then
like
he's an
a Brendan
outfielder.
Donovan? But then I've got a lot of guys in the same type of role for this team, and I need guys that fill holes and voids that this team does not have.
This is a guy. The reason why I am taking the other side on this and why I'm so confident that he should be a player that gets extended this offseason. I don't know that they'll do it, but why I would absolutely do it this offseason is because, there's no downside to doing what I'm saying here. None whatsoever, other than a career-ending injury, which you can't plan for those. But otherwise, he's going to be 28 years old. He will essentially be on the Tommy Edman or the Chris Taylor plan where, hey, any given season, what do we need? We need a second baseman? Cool, he can play that for us. We need a first baseman? Donnie could do that if you needed him to over the course of a season. You need a corner outfielder? You can do that. You need a DH? You can do that. Donovan is the kind of player that just fills whatever hole you have. And he's also doing all of the little things correct. He's a gamer. He steals some bases for you. He's going to go out there and first to third on a single. He is pregame working with all of the young guys. He's everything you could possibly want in a St. Louis Cardinal bottled up into one individual player. They need more of those guys, not less of them. And so I'm rewarding him. I'm rewarding him for 3 consecutive seasons of good ball. Last year he played with a bionic arm. This year he's posted 144 times already. He's probably going to get to 150 games played after his arm busted midway through last season. I'm doing it. I'm extending Brendan Donovan this offseason. He's a part of my core group of position players. I can't say that about many guys right now. Him and Mason Wynn are probably the 2 guys, and I think you could argue maybe Burleson has worked his way into that this season as well. But that's the guys that have produced at the big league level that I'm moving forward with. Those would be the guys for me that I'm ready to do it with.
you just hand out 3 contract
No,
extensions?
I'm saying those are my core group of position players right now.
I need to see win.
Just like with Brendan Donovan, I need to see multiple seasons before I'm willing to talk extension with these guys. We've seen 1 year from many players by the Cardinals now, and then the next year is when it goes back. The difference with Donovan, the thing that he's done that other position players have not for this organization, is 3 consecutive years to start out their career with 10% above league average offense. Donovan is one of 5 guys since 2013 for the Cardinals that had at least 3 seasons of 10% above league average production. The others, Carpenter, Goldie, Holiday, Jay, Molina. He's now the 6th guy to be able to do it. I'm locking him in.
I'll give him his 1-year contract that he earns in the arbitration system. I just don't see the upside in the contract extension because I don't think he's ever going to outprice himself. You know, the guy that outprices himself is the Nolan Gorman with 40 home run potential. Now, he's not getting a contract extension from me. Jordan Walker, the guy that I wanted to sign to a contract extension in the offseason, he's a guy that can outprice himself from you in arbitration system. Alec Burleson might end up becoming a guy that could ultimately do that, so maybe in a year or two I'm willing to have that conversation. To me, Donovan will never do that. Mason Wynn will never do that. Those guys, for me, I hate to say it, it's cold-hearted. It's a little bit of some people would say, well, you should reward these guys and make them feel comfortable. No, they're not gonna outprice themselves. I'm not afraid. And if the $3 million that I brought up that I could use elsewhere, if that's actually not a major concern for the Cardinals, okay, well then we can pay him when we get to that spot. But for me, I don't see the upside in the contract extension for Brendan Donovan. He's a guy that's going to go through the arbitration system and play it out by ear.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. 2 of them are haters. I'm a guy that actually likes Brendan Donovan. Good baseball players that are a part of the Cardinals.
Tyler O'Neill.
I would have liked Josh Hader. That would have been good.
I didn't extend Tyler O'Neill either.
What?
That 10-year, $100 million contract, that was you.
No, that was
No.
Bader. That was Bader.
Oh, yeah, that
Bader,
one,
lock
too.
him up.
Hey.
10 years, $100 million.
First of all, didn't say 10 years, but I did say that I would give him a 5-year, $50 million deal. And looking back, that would have been a good deal for the Cardinals. And they could really use a guy like Harrison Bader on this current.
What are you talking about? They
group
got
the
2 of
St. Louis
them, Michael
Cardinals.
Ciani and Victor Scott, and they don't think Scott could play up here
Bader
anymore.
hits from the right side. He could have platooned with one of those guys. Would have ended up being a really good center field. Whatever.
Has like a
Neither
foot
here nor
problem.
there. That's fine. He's a good player. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to do some math together on the air. That always goes super well for us here on BK and Ferrario. We're broadcasting live, by the way, at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. And Matt Kessel, Blues defenseman, is going to join us in studio coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Wall-to-wall Blues coverage is right here on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center for Blues training camp. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up at the end of this hour, we're going to do a game of Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise. If you guys have any questions, hey, you want to talk politics?
No.
You want to talk
I don't want to get political, but no.
You want to talk about the best movie that we saw this year? Whatever it is you want to discuss.
Handing out long-term contracts to players who have only done it for a couple of years? Let's do it.
That one's the same as politics. Don't ask me.
We'll get into that coming up at 11:45. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service tax line for Ask Us Anything. You can always check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. And if you check us out over there, coming up here in just a couple of minutes, we'll be joined in studio by Matt Kessel. Blues defenseman, had one hell of a breakout season last year for the team. He's going to be a part of their top 6, I would imagine, defensive core going into this year. So we'll talk to Matt Kessel about what he learned in his first experience in the NHL and how he's going to be able to carry that over into this season here in just a moment. But Alex, going back to that defensive core, we did talk a little bit yesterday about what we saw early on in our first real experience seeing Broberg on the ice. Alex was like a kid in a candy store this morning.
Finally got my Mongoon, guys.
He had an opportunity finally to watch an extended run of Philip Broberg on the ice. Alex, what'd you see?
My man skates about as flawlessly as you can ask. And it shouldn't be a surprise because both Daniel Nugent-Bowman told us that, and I forget who was the other one that we had. Mark Spector told us that, like, this guy, his skating is elite at the NHL level. It's just a matter of getting the games underneath his belt. Excuse me, but watching Broberg just skate out there in drills, and I mean, understand this is day 2 of training camp, and they're just doing these drills.
Do not take any of this with a grain of salt.
No.
This is absolutely real, and you should definitely
write it
take
down
it
in
to the
paper,
bank.
just like a Hall & Oates. Write it down in paper.
Pen.
Permanent marker. Broberg gives off the very similar vibes in terms of skating as Jay Bouwmeester. And frankly, for this Blues team, that is something that this team has not had since Jay Bouwmeester called it a career. They traded for Nick Leddy because they needed somebody who was a smooth skater and could get the puck out of their own zone flawlessly. And it was fine, but they're using him in a role in a shutdown defenseman that doesn't really utilize that as much. Torrey Krug was supposed to be that guy. Torrey Krug is good in the offensive zone, but it wasn't puck exits and getting the puck out quickly. That wasn't the level of expectation that you had with him. And then you went through Nico Mikkola, you did Jake Wallman, you've done everybody you can think of to be a top 4 left-handed defenseman that can mesh well with your other guys to move the puck. Guys, just 2 days in, Philip Broberg moves that puck flawlessly. Like, he's able to transition from front to back, going up the ice, backwards playing defense, his long stick reach. All of that bodes well with his skating ability. And really, it gives what the Blues had in that stretch run when they traded for Jay Bouwmeester all the way up until he called it a career. And I think that is massive for this team to have somebody that they can rely on 18 to 20 minutes a night that can provide you the zone exits that you didn't have last year.
I am pretty excited to see what he can bring to this defensive core. And he brings a level of athleticism and speed and that transition game that you were talking about that I'm looking forward to seeing on the ice. Another guy that we're looking forward to seeing on the ice for the St. Louis Blues this year is Matt Kessel. Had a breakout campaign for the Blues a year ago. He's joining us now here in studio on BK and Ferrario, coming off of the ice today. Day 2 of Blues training camp. Matt, appreciate the time, man. Thanks for hopping on with us today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Just got done with day 2 of camp, so
just what you wanted to do coming off the ice after some grueling training camp reps, right? Come talk to us, knuckleheads.
That was perfect timing out of you guys. Right when I sat down, mic in my face, and
we try to make it as easy as possible
just like
for you.
Like it.
Matt, you get through year 1 of your season with the Blues. What did you learn from that first extended run at the NHL level?
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun, and being able to play as much as I did here, close to 40 games, just kind of gave me a bit of confidence going into the summer, and even right away, right when I was starting to train early on in the summer, it exciting for me and just looking forward to this season.
Matt, what have these training camps been like? Because this is like your 4th or 5th training camp now with the Blues since you've been drafted. So you've gone through these, and it's odd to probably say that you're somewhat of a veteran at these training camps, but does it give off that same feel for you when you're out there now?
Actually, only my 3rd. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, with college and all that COVID stuff going on after getting drafted,
right.
I wasn't able to come up here. So after my after junior year, after signing, playing some games in the AHL, and then that next summer was my first one. So this is my 3rd, and definitely even going from 1 to 2 to 3, it's a lot more confidence each time. And yeah, definitely coming here. It's great to be here right away, and good to have 2 days under the belt already so far. It's been fun.
What was the biggest transition for you going to the NHL level? Because just as an observer, it seems like you got acclimated quicker than most defensemen do. It takes a lot of guys 3, 4, 5 years to get really comfortable at this level. So what was that transition like for you, and why do you think you made it so seamlessly?
Yeah, I think a big thing, it was a big part on the Springfield coaches, and that's Bannister as well, who was down there. And they kind of just got me prepared to always play my game. They wanted me to play a certain way in the AHL, and when I came up to the NHL, they wanted me to play the same exact way. So I think that was their big harp on me. So helped to be a lot smoother transition. Just playing simple, snapping pucks up to the forwards quickly, and just continue to play hard in the D zone and just be simple, get my shots through and stuff like that. So I think that's what was the biggest factor.
Matt, the transition from college hockey to the American Hockey League, I would imagine, is difficult. But what's the transition like from the AHL to the NHL?
AHL to NHL, I feel like for me it was just it feels like there's a lot more games kind of back to back. It feels like you're playing every other day. So definitely a big emphasis on recovery after games and stuff like that. It's a lot of learning from other guys, and you kind of have to find your own routine. And obviously travel's quite a bit different in the AHL where we were. It felt like mostly games on the weekend, and the bus trips weren't too bad playing in the East there, but here it's obviously some later nights with flying back home from games. So I think that's kind of been the biggest thing, but it's been great.
Yeah. I think in radio, one of the things that has made me a better host is working with a lot of different people, right? You work with a lot of different personalities, and you find, okay, what works with who? It seems like had every defensive pairing that you could possibly have last year, and now you've got a bunch of new partners potentially that could be with you going into this season. What's that like, working with different players on the blue line together? How do you develop that chemistry?
Yeah, that definitely takes a little bit of time, I feel like, and right now I'm with Suter, so it's been a lot of fun already in just these first 2 days, and it's kind of just communicating with each other. I've seen a lot of these drills before, so it's me kind of. I'm sure he gets the gist of them, but just communicating with him and just kind of having us on the same page. But I feel like for me, it's kind of my role playing that simple ways to kind of help my partner out, like kind of be there for him and being just a good defensive role all the time. So it's been fun. It's definitely a little bit of growth there.
I got to imagine that's good for you, having like 1,500 NHL games, somebody's brain to pick every once in a while, right?
I know. I think I was joking with some of the guys that I think combined we got a good 1,485 games combined, and I got 41 or something to add to that. So
that's a good thing to have, though, as a pairing out there in the season.
A lot of combined games there.
Absolutely.
I wonder, that's got to be the biggest gap in age between any two defensemen in the NHL this
40
year.
to 24 years old?
Yeah, 16 years gap between one player to the other. That's a nice group.
That'll be fun to talk about all season long when you're out there with him. You got 1,500 games. You got a guy who's at 50 games, and just keep building from there.
Exactly.
So, Matt, you mentioned the coaching staff specifically with Drew Bannister, and we interviewed John Buccigross last year, who's big in college hockey, and he talked about you, and he said, man, what people don't know about Matt's game is he's got an offensive mindset, but in the NHL, of course, you have to adapt to different roles. But Bannister seems like a guy that for the defenseman, he likes to allow you guys to get up in the rush. Did you notice that with him in the AHL, and then once you got to the NHL level?
Yeah, definitely. I think, with my game, I feel like you want to focus on defense first, and that might be the first little stretch in switching to these kind of different leagues. But, yeah, he has a big emphasis on, like, that weak side D, jumping up in the rush, and that's how I was fortunate enough to get my first goal against Anaheim, jumping up in the rush, and something I'll look to continue. Obviously, all of us, we've went over that on video today on our breakouts. If the if we get the puck up clean, and that third D or second D always wants to join the rush. So yeah.
Bucci said that slapper of yours is dangerous, so I said we'll have to keep an eye out on it all season long.
Yeah, Bucci's a big UMass fan.
Yeah,
so
that's why when I brought up the young players, he goes, "Oh, this Matt Kessel kid, I loved watching him in UMass." I'm like, "All right, well, let's run with this, Bucci."
Yeah, he was a big fan of us when we had that awesome championship there.
So for Mizzou fans that are going to be taking a trip here in a couple of weeks to UMass for that game against your squad, what are some of the things that they need to be doing if they're going up to UMass? I cannot believe that game is being played, but whatever. What are some of the things that they need to do while they're in Amherst?
I know. I did see that on their schedule.
Matt was thinking the same thing. What the hell is this happening right now?
I know. What are they going to do in Amherst? Go check out the Mullen Center. I don't know. I'm sure they'll be fine.
Not a whole lot to do.
I'm sure. I don't want to. Love my UMass squad, but I'm sure they'll be fine on the football field. And,
I think if they aren't, we've got bigger questions to ask.
Yeah. So that's all I got.
That's good.
Matt Kessel joining us for just another minute here on 101 ESPN. So, Matt, we talked the other day with some other players, and they said, the message was basically there's no more excuses. It's time for us to really push for a playoff spot this year. Describe what the feeling is around this team right now. It feels like the vibes are pretty high from all the conversations that we've had with guys, but what's it like inside of the locker room?
Yeah, I think everyone is in agreement. It's been too long of a summer, so everyone's excited to be here right now, and I think we've gained some good depth. We got some guys with some good size, and everyone's a good skater out there. So camp, the first 2 days has been very competitive and a lot of up and down the ice. Good speed all around. So. Yeah, it's definitely hope to take a bigger step than last year and be a better squad and give us a chance and do some damage in the playoffs.
Matt, final one for me, but is it fun for you to look around 24 years old and see a lot of these other guys who 21 years old, 22 years old, 23? Is it fun for you to look around and see a core that looks like it's going to be in place for some time rather than looking around and seeing a lot more older guys?
Yeah, for sure. I think it seemed like fans are wanting to rebuild, but I feel like we got a very good squad right now, and yeah, a lot of good young talent, and a lot of good older players and a lot of good leadership around. So I think the Blues will be good team obviously this year and to come as well. So it's a good time to be Blue. It's awesome.
He's Matt Kessel. We appreciate him hopping in studio with us, coming off of the ice. Day 2 of training camp down here at the Centene Community Ice Center. Matt, thanks so much for the time, man. We'll talk with you again soon.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
That's Matt Kessel joining us here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, Alex has everybody on the roster scoring 50 goals. So we're going to see just how many they can score this year with Alex next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Hockey season is here. As the St. Louis Blues continue training camp, BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live at the Centene Community Ice Center. You just heard from defenseman Matt Kessel, and you can expect to hear from more special guests as we progress throughout the afternoon. And last night, the Cardinals wrapped up the series against the Pirates with a 3-2 loss. They are back in action tonight, facing off against the Guardians. Ben Lively is pitching for the Guardians, and Kyle Gibson is getting the start for the Cards. First pitch is at 7:15. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
More Blues talk more often. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Thinks this team's making the playoffs. He thinks everybody on the team is going to score 30 goals, basically. He's really excited about the St. Louis Blues in 2024.
You like to put words in my mouth.
I'm not too far off of the things that I just said.
There's 4 30-goal scorers on this team.
And yet, I do think for the most part, I'm going to give you a little bit of credit here, Alex. Alex has a reasonable view of what this team can be. Playoff team.
Thank you for the credit, BK.
Playoff team. Fighting for like 3rd, 4th, 5th in the Central Division, maybe a wild card spot, and let's see what happens from there, right? I think that's kind of the way that you view them, and I think that's the way that, honestly, Doug Armstrong probably views them as well. That being said, Alex, I wanted to look at some of the teams last year that were constructed in the way that the Blues are, and that they're not an elite goal suppression team, but they should be pretty good. Last year, they finished 15th in the league in goals allowed per game. Should be probably between 10th and 15th, I would assume, this year as well. I think the blue line should be better. Goaltending should be, once again, very good. You add it all up. I think the forwards have probably gotten a little better defensively as well, a little more responsible in that regard. But you've got some young guys. They'll make some mistakes, and so maybe finish somewhere 10 to 15 in terms of goals allowed per game. Other teams that are kind of in that same range last year, just to put this into context, Edmonton, Vegas, Pittsburgh, Nashville, Colorado, Minnesota. Those are some of the teams that are kind of in this goals allowed per game range. Alex, as you look at what you needed to score to be in this range and make the playoffs, you're talking about like 250-ish goals over the course of the season. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and do some math, shall we? This has never gone wrong for us in the history of our show.
As BK
where we
would
do
say,
math on the air.
Let's party.
Let's go through some of these players one by one. You tell me what you're expecting from them goal-wise, okay?
Sure.
And at the end, we'll see if this team actually has a shot.
It's going to be 400 goals on this team.
to be able to get into the postseason based on their goal performances this year. All right, you ready? I'm not going to push back on any of these right here. We're just going to go by it, one by one.
Great.
Jake Neighbors. How many goals do you think Jake Neighbors is going to score this year, Alex Ferrario?
25.
All right, 25.
I said 30 before, but
what happened?
Well, here's what happened. The Blues decided Jake Neighbors should be playing on a line that doesn't include your number one potential 100-point centerman.
That seems fair.
If he gets more playing time with Thomas by the end of the season, I can see 30. I would put it between 25 and 30, but as it stands now, I'll say 25.
All right, no pushback here. Robert Thomas.
30.
Jordan Kyrou.
35.
Okay. Well, so far, I feel like this is pretty realistic. What do you think, Al?
Where am I getting too excited right now, guys?
Pavel Buchnevich.
I would put...
If he said he scores 10 if he plays center. I heard it in a piece.
I don't believe you, Pavel. I do not believe you. I think because he's playing center, and I think it's going to be a little extended run. I forgot what we had said off the air, but I believe it's 25 to 30. But I'll go 25 as a centerman.
Okay.
I'd agree.
Brandon Saad. 25. We can all agree 25.
25 goals,
25
no
goals,
assists.
20 assists, 45 points, right at him pin. You know what you're getting from him.
At some point, we're going to have a stretch where we say, would you please pass? Yes.
And then there'll be a thing where it's like, stop passing the damn puck. Go stand in front of the net.
Braden Shin, 25 goals, 20 assists, right in his pin. You don't have to worry about it. Holloway.
15.
I'd agree with that.
I don't want to get too over my skis. I think there's a potential for 20, but I do not think he's a 10-goal scorer. I would say 15.
All right, Radek Faksa.
I'll put him at 10.
Matthew Joseph.
I think he could get to 15. but
Let's say 10.
I'll reel it in as 10.
Alexander Texier.
10.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Toropchenko.
15. Dude, we were watching him shoot the puck.
He looks awesome.
I think he figured out how to shoot and actually hit the net. And when he hits the net, watch out.
And I'm going to do this so that way it's a little easier. We don't have to go through one by one. The 12th forward spot will be probably maintained by the following: Oscar Sundqvist, Zach Bolduc, Dalibor Dvorsky, Zach Dean, those kinds of guys. So, like, between you see a little bit of, like, Nathan Walker this year as well, whoever it is. For those guys that are going to maintain at some point this year the 12th forward spot, what kind of goal production are you expecting in total?
I think we listed off 5 guys. I'll put 5 for each of them. So I think 25 in total with those guys is probably the range that I'm looking at.
All right, so when you look at it all done with the numbers that you just gave me, you're talking about roughly 240 to 250 goals for the forwards that the Blues have been able to add to the team this year.
Yeah.
You add in the D-men, think what, 25, 30 goals overall?
Last year they scored 21 as a group of defensemen, and you're adding in Ryan Suter, who scored 5 last year, and Broberg, who, of course, scored 3 in the playoffs.
So I'd go
I would
25.
say 25 probably is a safe spot for it.
That gets you roughly to the 10 to 15 range in terms of goals overall over the course of the season last year. Teams that were in that similar range: Nashville, Florida, New Jersey, Boston, Vegas, Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think...
Is it a playoff team?
Yeah.
All playoff teams.
I think New Jersey, Vegas, Winnipeg are the 3 teams, because New Jersey wasn't, right? New Jersey fell out of
they
that
stunk
towards
last
the end.
year.
Yeah.
I think Vegas and Winnipeg are 2 eerily similar teams with this one. Mostly Winnipeg because, they've got the offense and they've got the guys that can score you a lot. But I think the Blues might be deeper in terms of 4 lines than what Winnipeg has. But Winnipeg does it off of their goaltending as well. Goaltending keeps them in games. I think those are right around the area, like Vancouver, Winnipeg, Vegas. I think that's what the Blues are.
As I look down these numbers, I don't think Alex was unrealistic, T-Bone. I think these are mostly like, what am I supposed to push back against? Hey, Braden Shen, 25 goals. That's ridiculous.
Literally did it last year.
Braden Shen last year in a bad season scored 25 goals for the Blues.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dylan Holloway. I think I would push back if you told me 20. 15 feels very reasonable for a guy that's going to get top 9 minutes. Like, if he doesn't score 15 goals this year, I'd be a little surprised, honestly.
I mean, between the 38 games he played in Edmonton and then the playoff games, he scored 11 goals. So in 63 games between the playoffs and the regular season, and mind you, that wasn't consistently, it was sporadic, he scored 11 goals.
Foxa, Joseph, Texier all scoring 10. That's not asking too much from any of them individually. That's pretty much where you kind of need to be in those spots in the lineup. I think the big thing comes back to, can you get Neighbors, Thomas, Kyrou, and Booch to be the top goal scorers that you're looking for?
And mind you, Booch, Joey told us this yesterday. Booch said our best players need to be our best players if we want to have any success. And that's Kyrou, Thomas, Buchnevich, Jake Neighbors, and Braden Shen, who I'd put in that category, but I think 25 goals. The thing about that, too, is I was being reserved with a lot of those estimations. Like, I can see a higher upside. Like, if Kyrou gets more of those goals that he was snake-bitten on and hit the post and missed the net last season, I think you got a guy who could potentially get you to 40, which helps Robert Thomas become a 100-point player. If Pavel Buchnevich moves over to the wing and doesn't play center all season, I think he could be a 30-goal scorer. I was very reserved with a lot of those estimations. I do think that there is a higher ceiling for a couple of those players.
The other thing is, like, okay, so let's say that Joseph disappoints this year. Texier disappoints this year.
That's the group that, like, you take away those, 30 goals. Foxa was, I'm sure, the next name you're going to throw in there. Like, you take away those 30 goals, where does that get made up for?
Here's the thing. If those guys are disappointing, I'm not just taking away the 30 goals. I'm just replacing them with Bolduc or Dvorsky or
could
whoever.
Score more if he gets more playing time.
Yeah, or just asking them to get 10 is pretty reasonable. Like, just whoever is in that spot in the lineup, I would expect to get to that goal production. And so, maybe you end up, instead of getting to 265 or 270, maybe it's like 255 or 260 over the course of the season. That's still pretty good. And that if you have the same level of goaltending as you did a year ago,
in front of better defense,
has the potential, man, to get you to a postseason spot. And so, I've pushed back a little bit against Alex on this notion that the Blues are a playoff team this year. As you just go through and just kind of do a little bit of math on, all right, what does this mean? What do these goal scorers mean? What does this defense? They really might be They really might be. And it's going to require them to stay healthy. That's another thing that we haven't really talked a lot about. Like, their top dudes, they've got it. Parayko can't get hurt this year. You can't miss any significant amount of time from especially Thomas, Kyrou, or Buchnevich. If one of their top 2 centermen get hurt, that could really do a hard right turn as a detour for this team in terms of what they're capable of. But, Alex, I don't think you're crazy for believing what you do about this team going into the season.
It feels good being told that every once in a while.
Can I give you my biggest concern? If we're just being honest? Sure. I do wonder if we're asking a little too much out of Radek Faksa. A little too much.
I mean, I totally understand that sentiment, too. I mean,
because right now, as of today, he's your third-line center.
Yeah.
And if you look at what he's done over the last few seasons with the Dallas Stars, he's going to play a hard-nosed game. I think Blues fans are going to like him as long as he's in the right role. If he's asked to be something that he's not, though, where he's playing 16 minutes a night, 15 minutes a night as a third-line center, trying to get the most out of some young guys like a Dylan Holloway, for example, that does give me a little cause for concern. He's a guy that over the last, I think it's 2018-19 was the last time he scored more than 20 points in a season.
Yeah.
That's a guy that should just be in a Oscar Sundqvist role. And honestly is even less offensive geared than Oscar Sundqvist is. So that does make me a little hesitant with what you're going to get out of that third line. Holloway, Joseph, Texier, whoever ends up being on that group.
And I totally understand that because, look, like him or not, he's older and he's slow. I mean, it is very similar to how Kevin Hayes did it. Here's my only reason why I'm optimistic. I think he plays very differently than Kevin Hayes in terms of he has an emphasis on forechecking and retrieving pucks. It's kind of what he's done on the fourth line for Dallas. And Kevin Hayes, who did none of that last season, we know, guys, we saw it, scored 13 goals. And also remember who he was playing with last season. He had Kasperi Kapanen on his line. He had Jakub Vrana on his line. And Faksa, going back to last season when he played with Dallas, he was playing with Brennan Smith and Sam Steele. The guys aren't setting the world on fire. They're putting him on a line with 2 guys that we just talked about. I feel like can score 15 goals, and on a good season, Matthew Joseph could get to 15 goals. If you put him with guys who are more offensive-minded and not fourth-liner, go out there and just forecheck and set the tone, I at least think you could see that upside of 10 goals. Do I think he gets there? It's going to be tough. You got to stay healthy, and you got to have consistency with your line chemistry. But, if Kevin Hayes can get 13 goals playing with Jakub Vrana and Kasperi Kapanen, I think Radek Faksa could give you similar numbers, maybe better than what Kevin Hayes was last year if you're giving him better line mates.
Radek Faksa, 2020 and 2021, played 130 games, was averaging roughly 17 minutes of ice time per night on the Dallas Stars, put a combined 33 points up with a minus 35. That was the last time that he played third-line center role. And so over the last couple,
Blake Como and Andrew Cogliano too
on 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So
fourth liners. That's and I'm not trying to tell you that you're wrong because you are correct. I don't know, but if the core that he could be playing with is Holloway, Texier, Toropchenko, and Matthew Joseph.
It's worth noting those guys were third and fourth line players last year too, though.
Yeah.
They were.
And the only one that's kind of really proven himself is Toropchenko in that group. Yeah. Holloway played, what did we say,
Holloway
30 games in the regular season?
Holloway proved himself in the playoffs when he was playing with Leon Draisaitl. He didn't do it in the regular season because he was playing the fourth line. So you're right. These are also fourth liners. I look at Faksa as a guy who's been deployed as a certain type of player in Dallas for the last 4 or 5 years because, they've got deep centermen. They've got, Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, Joe Pavelski, Rope Hintz. They've got dudes. They don't need Radek Faksa to be in your top 9. At least if you're putting him in your top 9 right now, I think he gives you a little bit of what Oscar Sundqvist gives you. Yeah. I think they're the same player.
And I think Oscar Sundqvist, if we asked him to be the third-line center, you'd be asking him to do too much. That's my biggest concern right now, and it's why I would like to see Braden Shen back at center sooner rather than later. For the second-line center, but even if they're committed to this Buchnevich thing as your second-line center, I would feel much better about this team going into the season, being able to get the most out of those 2 wingers that we just talked about with Joseph and Holloway if they have Braden Shen as the center for that third line. I think you might be asking a little too much from a guy that is more qualified. I think people would really like him as a fourth-line center. And I think you're going to be asking for a little more offense if you have him as your third-line center. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Ask us anything, sports or otherwise, coming up here on 101 ESPN.
exclusive Blues training camp coverage on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are live at Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions. We may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers.
Presented by Window World St. Louis.com. Simply the best for less.
9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. I think this one is a man coming after T-Bone's heart. Guys, how come I'm not hearing a full game preview of tonight's ranked matchup between the Illini and Nebraska? T-Bone,
Well,
what do you
Brandon.
got going into tonight?
text line, I tried to get it in the show today, but BK didn't want to talk about Illinois. He wanted to talk about Mizzou and Vandy, for crying out loud.
Yep.
But
Diego Pavia, dude, that guy is a legit stud for Vandy.
I don't know if they're
And
going to cover the 20-point spread.
We'll talk about that coming up later on this afternoon.
Somebody have it in their pick.
Vandy is a frisky team that has a quarterback. If you were looking at the watchability index, he'd be at the top. Diego Pavia is one of the most exciting quarterbacks to watch in all of college football. So that's my very brief Mizzou preview. They also give up a bleep ton of explosive plays at Vandy this year. So this should be the week that Mizzou gets their offensive explosive plays going. Luther Burden should have a big one. T-Bone, tonight, forget about Mizzou, set that aside. Tonight, Illinois versus Nebraska in Nebraska. What do you got in this one?
I'm worried for the Illini.
I forgot that it was Lincoln. I was going to say Lexington. I was like, that is not.
That was the Calgary, Canada thing you did there.
It's going to be interesting to see how they kind of contain Riolo in this one, because he's been fantastic so far for Nebraska. He looks like a legit stud at the quarterback position. The Illini secondary is very good. But the problem is Riolo, we've seen, can kind of create from outside the pocket, and Illinois doesn't have a pass rush. So I don't really have a great read as to how they're going to handle him defensively, because their secondary should be able to lock down some of his favorite weapons, but not if they have to defend them forever. The problem for the Illini, and I thought Connolly had a great piece in his piece talking about the college football weekend. He broke down Illini perfectly where it is. Bielema loves to run the football, and they can't run the football. And I don't know if they can have Altmaier. I don't know if he can be the guy that can beat Nebraska on the road. So I think it's going to come down to can they slow down Riola enough just for the offense to get to like 20 points. If they can hold Nebraska to 20 and under, I think they can win this football game. I don't think you can ask for that offense to score more than 20 points, though.
I think you probably need either a defensive or special team score, or you need a turnover that leads to like a super short
formula
field.
Against Kansas.
Yeah.
They had a touchdown on a pick six.
Boom. And that's the way you get it done, is that you basically have to win this with something other than your offense. True or false, T-Bone, if you win 2 of the next 5 games as an Illinois fan, you'll leave feeling pretty fulfilled about that. Your next 5 games are Nebraska on the road, Penn State on the road, and then Purdue, Michigan at home, and then Oregon on the road. If you win 2 of those 5, you'll feel good about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because I think the only one of those in that group that is the win was the Purdue game. And then otherwise you'd have another top 25 win in there. And 3 of those 4 are on the road? Is that right? Michigan?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah,
Nebraska, Penn State, and Oregon are on the road. Purdue, Michigan at home.
I would say, yeah. If they can find a way to win 2 out of those 5.
Does your answer change if they win tonight?
No, because I think they're don't get me wrong, I'm more excited. I've got tickets to when they play Michigan because I didn't have to pay the NIL
Mostly because
fee.
you want to see Michigan.
But no.
Also,
But
shot at BK. I like that.
Michigan's a terrible matchup for them because they're not great against the run either. The only reason they're good against the pass is their secondary. So it's a terrible matchup for them against Michigan. Penn State can run the ball down your throat as well. That's a bad matchup. And then Oregon can sling it. It's kind of like Nebraska, where I don't know how they're going to do if they can't get to the quarterback. So even if they win tonight, I would still be happy with 2 out of 5. I just know the realistic expectation is they're probably going to lose 3 of those 4 games against these ranked teams.
So down on this team.
I think that's totally reasonable. And if you do win 2 of them, I think you feel good about it.
And I'm a little more skeptical now that I've seen what Kansas really is.
So,
if you get 2 wins in this 5-game stretch, you could win 7 or 8 games this year, and that's a good season for this Illinois team. When the expectations weren't super high.
And they are so flawed up front in the trenches. Their offensive line isn't what I think Bielema thought. Their defensive line's not getting any pass rush. If I told you that you're losing in the war in the trenches, you probably shouldn't be a 7-win team. As Florida
Especially
State,
against these teams.
they're 0-3.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll do these quick hitter style. Guys, should I start Carr or Burrow on Sunday? Derek Carr is going up this weekend against Philly, and then Burrow, they have an interesting
Washington
one against the Commanders. I would go Burrow. I think that Commanders defense is trash, but where do you guys fall on this?
I actually would go Carr because I think Philadelphia's defense, especially secondary, is trash.
I would go Carr as well, and the only reason is because I think they'll keep it closer. And if they keep it closer, allows for more passing games. I think Cincinnati's going to blow out Washington.
And then run the ball the whole day.
And then run the ball, and then you lose some of that value.
From the 314, BK, do you look back and consider the Peloton investment to be a good purchase, despite the fact that they appear to be headed towards insolvency? Don't love that.
Great question.
But I do. I ended up really enjoying our experience, or have enjoyed our experience with the Peloton. We've used it. I use it for the bike in the winter. I run during the summer.
Have you used it much lately?
I'm over the age of 30, so like once it gets down below like 25-ish, I'm out on the outdoor running. Just can't do it. So I'm an indoor biker during the winter and then a runner during the spring, summer, and early fall. So that helps out during the winter, and then I like the workouts that they have available for you instead of having to have a gym membership now. So that's mostly what we use it for in the summer. All right. T-Bone, we all know that you're the GOAT at 101 ESPN for fantasy football.
Yeah, ask him how he's doing right now. That GOAT's doing really well.
My team's awesome.
Related.
You were never labeled the GOAT, man.
Who is the best sports bettor at the station? I think Tim McKernan's actually probably the best sports bettor at the station.
Yeah, I would say Tim or Stoltz.
Yeah, I would say probably Tim in terms of current sports bettor.
I'd probably be better if I stopped doing like 15 leg parlays when I put my bets together.
That would help. Every single professional sports bettor that has ever done this for a living will tell you that is the absolute worst way to bet on sports.
Who cares? Because I want that big money.
But when you win, dude, you win big.
Yeah,
and that's fun.
I don't need no $15 payout. I want $15,000.
It really depends how you want to do it. For a lot of people, sports betting is just like going to an amusement park where like, hey, I know I'm probably going to lose this $20, but guess what? It makes me feel something during the games, and that's really what this is all about. So if that's the way you want to do it, the way that Alex does it is way more fun and way more enjoyable. And then you can send out the tweet afterwards and say, I was one leg away from $20,000. Even though that's kind of the whole point of it, is like their goal at the sports book is you're going to miss on one of these because the odds of you hitting 7 legs of a parlay are slim to none.
Just wait for them to start sending that payout cash out. Like, all right, let's go.
My new favorite thing to do sports betting is live betting. Because you get an idea, like, now, granted, I didn't hit on it last week.
Grant likes to do that.
But I love the live betting side of it. You know, don't get me wrong, I enjoy doing the normal, like we do for the Pick'em Challenge. Sure. I enjoy the live betting more because you see more of the action and you can try and pick out the better odds.
Grant always texts me at night when he's watching hockey from home during, like, hockey season. He's like, dude, I'm taking the Penguins to come back in this one. And then they scored 2 goals. And he's like, I just won $35.
The reason why it's also better for you as a sports bettor to do the live in-game betting is because the odds aren't as efficient.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest thing is, like, sports bet is Sunday NFL games. There's more money on those than there is anything else, right? And so by the time that you get to the game on Sunday, that's going to be the worst line for you as a sports bettor. Just a little inside info here. Because there's so much money that's already been placed. That's the maximum efficiency that they can get as a sports book because they know where everybody's going to be. The best time to get a line is very quickly, or the look-ahead lines. Like Monday after the Sunday games, it's the best time to be able to do it. Just put your bets down early. And then the best time after that is like the actual live in-game sports betting where you feel like you've got a beat on the game and the algorithm might not be able to find the kind of in-game tweak that you see happening.
Great for like baseball. You know, baseball, hockey, I think those are the two that you can really take advantage of.
Hockey, I love doing that one with.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. We've got Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us today. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up next, guys, there is a prospect within the Cardinals system that has made his way basically from the bottom all the way up to the top by the end of the season, and he's doing things we rarely see from a Cardinals prospect. You're not going to compare it to one of the best that's ever done it in Cardinals history.
Mo.
This is a guy worth dreaming on. We'll tell you who that is next here on 101 ESPN.
is underway, and 101 ESPN has you covered. BK and Ferrario are coming to you live from Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Count that big pen.
Out 200 batters. It can be number 10 right here. 2-2. Swing, sword, strike 3, and 200. Quinn Mathews, in his first professional season, strikes out 200 batters. The 10th in Cardinals minor league history. The first since 2022 in minor league baseball.
That is what it sounded like last night on the Cardinals AAA broadcast as Quinn Mathews reaches 200 strikeouts on the season. Now, to put this in context, Alex, if you're looking for the best strikeout artist down in the minor leagues, it's Quinn Mathews. He has 202. Second in the entire minor league system, not just for the Cardinals, but for anybody in minor league baseball this year, is a guy by the name of Matt Wilkinson. He's a pitcher in the Cleveland Guardians organization. He has 174 strikeouts on the season. So Quinn Mathews has 30 more strikeouts so far this season than the next best pitcher down in the minors. He's been amazing so far this year. He's striking out 35% of the batters that he faces. He also doesn't have a walk problem. He's giving up an opposing batting average against of just 178. He has a 2.75 ERA so far this year. Quinn Mathews has been amazing. He started out down in low A, and has worked his way all the way up to AAA. He's gone through the entire Cardinals minor league system this year. To me, Alex, this is the guy that you dream on. This is the starting pitcher that you look at and say to yourself, we finally have somebody that you could actually look at 3, 4, 5 years from now and be a front-end starting pitcher for the Cardinals.
And that's massive for this team because you haven't had this in a really long time. And to have it in a guy who not only climbed through the system as fast as he did, but have it in a guy who climbed through the system and continued to strike guys out at a high clip. Like, it's one thing to be dominant at A-ball and then pretty good at AA and then get to AAA, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't know about this. He still continued to strike out stuff. Now, his ERA is higher at AAA, but more than anything, you're looking at this saying, yeah, but watch his swing and miss. So this is one of the pieces in terms of difference maker for the Cardinals in terms of their future outlook. The other piece is finding that big-time bat. You hope that a Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman can do it. But we've talked about how the cost-controlled ability benefits the Cardinals of Andre Pallante as a back end of the rotation starter. Now imagine what happens, and again, we're playing with imagination right now, which most of the time never is fun. Imagine what happens if you've got a front-end starter who has some high-level stuff for you that is cost-controlled. That gives you the ability to do a lot more creative stuff with your team in terms of making them competitive when you have those types of players. Now, I'm not going to get excited that this guy's going to come up next year and be Cole Reagans for the Cardinals, but in terms of the future outlook 2 to 3 years from now, this gets me excited in terms of finally getting a top-level starter that the Cardinals don't have to go out and spend money on.
Yeah, like my floor for him, if you ask me today, like what is your floor for expectations for him, is that he's a 3. Like, my hope is that worst-case scenario comes up here, ends up probably just being a 3 for the Cardinals in the long run. I'm dreaming on Quinn Mathews because of the strikeout stuff, and he's doing it at the AAA level. Now, the walks have ballooned on him at AAA. If I'm just being honest, my guess is it's the automated strike zone. Sure. It's smaller. He's getting squeezed a little bit more than he is at the AA and at the high A level earlier in the season. He's the guy that's got the stuff that's making me dream. You know, I don't think you rush him through your system next year. Like, the goal is probably the first time we see Quinn Mathews next year is hopefully like June, July. You get him more seasoning in AAA, see if he can work on a little bit of those walk problems and also maintain the strikeout stuff, and also just make sure that this is a legitimate thing from him again. But I think it is. I think it's real. I am allowing myself to potentially be brokenhearted if he does not pan out because we haven't seen something like this. This is the first guy that's come through the system that has legitimate strikeout stuff. Like, we hyped up, I don't want to say we hyped up, but we talked about Michael McGreevy, for example, right? Michael McGreevy's not a strikeout guy. He's like Michaelis 2.0. Gordon Graceffo's got nice stuff. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a awesome strikeout guy as a starter. Mathews is the one that I'm thinking, okay, he might be the guy that can come in and give you strikeout stuff from day one and be that cost control guy that is a top third of the rotation arm, which is super, super successful for the Cardinals if they've got that kind of cost control arm in their system.
All right, so I'm going to give you guys a BK game. Quick question for you.
This is going to be a Mo comp, isn't it?
Who was the last Cardinals pitcher in the minor leagues to have at least 100 innings pitched and a strikeout rate of 30% or better? The Cardinals have that this year in Quinn Mathews. He's thrown 143 innings and has a strikeout rate of 35%. The last Cardinals pitcher down in the minor league system to have a similar season in that regard was who?
So I've got two guesses.
Well, it's a BK game, so my guess is it's some dude in the 90s, and I don't know who it would be.
No, it only goes back to 2006 in this search engine that I've got, so it was not that far.
Flaherty was one of mine.
That was my thought first.
And Carlos Martinez was the other.
No and no.
Oh.
Michael Wacha?
Nope.
I don't know.
Wacha flew through the system.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think who else would have been high.
Shelby Miller. Shelby Miller was the last to do this, and he did it in A-ball in 2010. He finished that season with at least 100 innings pitched and 30% strikeout rate. He had a 3.6 ERA that year in A-ball.
The minors used to be different.
This year, Quinn Mathews has a 2.76 ERA, and he's done this between A-ball and AAA ball.
Yeah.
Dude, this is like, if you are a Cardinals fan, I'm telling you, man, this is the guy worth getting excited about. Like, this just doesn't. It is so rare to have a guy that can take up the innings that Quinn Mathews can and can have this kind of strikeout stuff and works his way through the system as quickly as he does. Like, there's some Michael Wacha to this. There's some Andre Palante to this. Yeah, and he's a lefty, which is the Cardinals. You know how much they love left-handed pitching.
Maybe a little too much.
Dude, like, I don't know if Quinn Mathews is going to be ready for the big leagues on opening day of next year. I don't know. It's not out of the realm of the possible. It's entirely possible, and they should not rush him. If he's not ready, do not put him into the rotation until he is. But on opening day of next year, if you told me, hey, BK, they have this guy in Quinn Mathews who flew through the system last year and proved by opening day is one of our 5 best pitchers, then put him into the rotation. Let's see what he looks like. And if it doesn't work, so be it. And you throw him back down to AAA. Never take him out of the rotation. You should start at every level.
You don't want to make him a bullpen arm at some time?
If he's a guy that just comes up and immediately proves, hey, I'm ready to go. I don't know if he is. I would bet against it. I think probably by mid-season next year, that's when you're really talking about him. But we talked a lot about Tinkins over the last few years being the prospect worth dreaming about. We'll see. We'll see what comes from him. He's had a really injury-plagued season. He's not going to have the innings. He's going to need another year, probably the entire year of being in the minor league system again. Quinn Mathews is the dude, man. That is the guy worth dreaming on right now. He's the one, like, prospects, especially pitching prospects, are there to hurt you because they break so often. This is the guy that I'm allowing to break my heart.
And if I'm the Cardinals, I mean, I'm looking at Quinn Mathews, Michael McGreevy, Andre Palante, and I don't know how you're viewing this season next year. Frankly, we'll have to wait to find out what they say in the postseason press conference. But, man, if you're going to take a step backwards and try and embrace the younger players a little bit, I'd probably give it a little bit of a leash next year. And maybe you don't want to ruin the guy. You don't want to break the prospect. But I would give it a little bit of leash if he looks competitive throughout spring training. And if it does, man, you don't know. I mean, you could do a Cole Reagan style to where the guy just comes out of nowhere and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if there's a scenario in my head yet that I say he's on the opening day roster, no matter what. I think I want to get him more seasoning at AAA. Don't want to rush him through because he has been at 3 levels. And though I do think the walks probably are tied to the strike zone at AAA, I still want him to get more experience down there before he gets back up here at the big league level. And that's not me saying he should spend the entire year at AAA. I just think that the Cardinals should go into spring training next year and say, here's our 5, we'll call Matt's a swingman, 6 guys that we can look at as kind of starters. There's no spot for Quinn Mathews on this roster right now.
Yeah.
When we get to like June, July, if we're dealing with injuries or he is pitching well at AAA, now we'll create a spot for him to be inserted into this rotation.
Yeah. If you're just a team that's not viewing this, which is going to be hard to believe that the Cardinals would do it that way of not being a playoff caliber roster, I'd give it a look just in terms of developmental purposes because when you want to be a competitive roster, it's going to be good for Quinn Mathews to have those under his belt.
All right, some recent players that have done what Quinn Mathews has done. Okay, so the qualifiers that I've got on this.
This is the Mo comps.
At least 100 innings.
Oh, did you see that face? This is it. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is where it goes downhill.
100 innings.
Okay.
In the minor leagues
30%
that year.
strikeout.
30% strikeout rate and an ERA of 2.5 or better. So, like, innings, strikeout stuff, and puts together like quality ERA, right? Because some guys just strike out the world, and then it's like, wait, but they also walked 20% of the batters that they face, and when people did make contact with them, it went over the fence. So yeah, it's really great that they struck out the world, but they had no idea where the ball was going.
Oh, Lance Lynn.
They didn't put up the innings as a
Alex
result.
Reyes.
Like yeah, like
well,
those kinds of guys. Although Reyes
too.
was really good down to the minor leagues, but you got like teams have players like that down to the minor.
All right,
league
man,
system.
stop burying the lead. Give us the names.
2022: Taj Bradley, Louis Varland, Logan Allen, Grayson Rodriguez. Those are the only pitchers in the minor leagues that put up those kinds of numbers, okay? A couple of those guys pretty damn good in the major leagues right now. And then 2019. So that was 2022. Those guys have now reached the big league level for the most part. And before that, you go back to like 2019. Excuse me, 2021. That's when that was. Christian Javier, Seth Corey, Logan Gilbert, Levi Kelly, Mackenzie Gore, Chris Bubich, never really worked.
Oh.
Nate Pearson, pretty good at the big league level now. Joey Cantillo, Tark Skubal, Joe Ryan.
I was saying, like, when you said Mackenzie Gore, I was like, I wonder if that's who he could be.
I don't even care what you
Not
guys
the
just
Skubal
said.
one.
You have Logan Gilbert.
If he ends up becoming Mackenzie Gore,
Tark Skubal, man.
No, Logan Gilbert. Screw you guys.
If he becomes Mackenzie Gore, that's a massive win for the Cardinals within this organization.
'Cause
that's what they've been looking for.
that's kind of what I said, because I think you would view, and I need to double check Gore's numbers here from this season. Yeah, that 30 starts, 4.170 ERA, 153 innings. That's the number 3 that I just said. I said, like, his floor at this point, you hope, is a number 3 starter. And that's what Mackenzie Gore is so far at the age of 25 with the Washington Nationals. And they're still dreaming on him continuing to develop as he gets older, gets more experience to develop into maybe a 2.
Somebody said, how old is this kid? He's 23. That's maybe the most impressive part of this all. Is like he was a college pitcher.
That's not the age of Shelby Miller when he got to the majors?
Yeah, I think similar. I think
It's the
Shelby
age
might have
of
even been younger.
Mackenzie Gore when he got up with the
was
Padres.
it?
Yeah.
So that's part of what's so exciting about this particular prospect is he made it through your system so quickly out of college. It's similar to Andre Palante in that regard, but with way better stuff. And so, like, you get him up to the big leagues quickly, and he's still very young, which means there's still potential for him to get better. So that, man, you
Calm
want to
down over there.
You want to talk about a comparison? Here's one for you, Alex. He can be for the Cardinals what Broberg is for the Blues.
Totally.
And what I mean by that is the thing that you've been missing suddenly shows up, like, at your doorstep. Nobody expected it. It came out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, wow, okay. Now we're ready to hit the gas on a retool that, like, we just felt like we were beginning, and now we're accelerating. That is what this kind of a prospect has the potential to do. I don't want to put too much on his shoulders, but I mean, the Cardinals, this is what they do with every prospect, and this is where we're at. He has that kind of potential, man. He did that for them this year.
And if that's the case, that's even more of a reason why the Cardinals should be more aggressive in the offseason or whenever it might be to go find the bat to match with it. Like, if you're starting to formulate this core, you get a lot of complementary pieces. If your pitching side's starting to develop a lot more dudes, you need to go out there and be aggressive and go find that bat that changes it and make this faster, a faster retool.
Yeah, give yourself the potential, like the Royals did, where if you are right about somebody, if Cole Reagans is as good as you think he's going to be, give yourself the offense that can take advantage of that opportunity for you. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we are going to talk a little bit about that Philip Broberg character that has suddenly made the Blues defensive core a little more intriguing. Alex will tell you what he saw from him earlier today. And is it Torpo breakout season? Is that incoming for the Blues?
You know it.
We'll talk about that coming up in 15 minutes. Football Pick'em is next here on 101 ESPN.
coverage is right here on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center for Blues training camp. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Football Pick'em. If you're new to this, we do this each and every week, every Friday on the show, going into the weekend for football, college, NFL. You get to pick 3 games. It's on a scale of 1 to 3. Super simple, Alex. 1-point game, 2-point game, 3-point game. On Monday, we'll look back at all of our games from the weekend, see who scored the most points out of a potential of 6. So far, Alex is bringing up the rear. He's got 5 points over the first 2 weeks. T-Bone has 8. I have 8. We both started out hot. T-Bone, all 3 of us went 1 for 3 last week with 2 points overall.
No.
So we're 2 weeks in. We've got 4 weeks in this month. This week, we will all be picking our games. Alex, it's simple. It's against the spread. No point totals, no prop bets, and the game has to be concluded before we get on the air on Monday morning. Those are the parameters. Let's get right into it. Alex, what is your 1-point play for this week?
Minnesota Vikings at home against the Texans. +2 for Minnesota. You know me. I love my Houston Texans. I know. I love my Houston Texans.
Interesting.
Here's the thing, though, and I also don't buy into Sam Darnold. I do buy into Brian Flores' defense and the ability to just completely confuse the hell out of offenses. And I like Houston. I still think there's some kinks needing to be worked out with that offense overall. Joe Mixon's not going to be available for them, so there takes that run game away from them. I think Sam Darnold could feast on that secondary against Houston because, I mean, they've given up a lot of those YOLO plays in the first 2 weeks of the season. So I think that one's going to be close. I think the Texans come out victorious, but I think it's going to be a 1-point play. And I understand the lines, BK, so don't make fun of me on this one.
You think the Texans will win by 1?
Yeah. Which the Vikings +2 covers.
It's a cover.
What a very specific pick. I love it.
I'm shocked by that because I almost took that as my 1-point play and went the other out of that of Houston, but I decided to get away from it because I wasn't confident.
I wasn't willing to touch it because of what you said with the defense from Minnesota.
I really like Flores' defense.
I like it. It's ballsy, but I like
ballsy. It's a 1-point pick. Look, I'm not going to win or lose this month by my 1-point plays. It's going to be my 2 and 3-point plays.
All right, T-Bone's the favorite in this regard, so I'll go ahead and give mine. I also think mine's a little gutsy as well with my 1-point play. This is the most disgusting game of the weekend, potentially.
Okay.
I've got the Packers.
I thought he was going to bet on a Mac game or something.
I thought he was going to take Vanderbilt plus the points.
As a 3-point underdog on the road at Tennessee. Now, I don't know if for sure Jordan Love's going to be playing in this game or not. But it sounds like there's at least a chance that he does. And if he ends up playing, I think this line's going to swing all the way in the direction of the Packers, where they'll be like a 3-point road favorite going up against the Titans, even if he doesn't play, which I think the smart call is probably keep him out one more week and then get him back to close to 100% by next week. Even if he doesn't play, I just think you've got an advantage at head coach. I think you saw last week, they're just going to run the football. This game is going to be disgusting, dude. It's like 14-13. Packers find a way to win in the end. That's kind of what I'm anticipating here. I'm going to take the Packers plus the 3 points in a game that nobody should watch, but I think they keep it close.
I don't mind that pick because the Love thing. I'm a little concerned, but I think he's probably going to play. And you're right. If he does play, that line is going to swing, and it'll probably swing to where the Packers will be favored. So, I actually love that pick at number 1. My 1-point pick, guys. I feel kind of dirty for doing this.
You picking against your Illini?
I am.
Nice.
I'll root to be wrong tonight. I promise I will. I've become less enthused by what I saw against Kansas because of Kansas and because of what I saw from Illinois against Central Michigan. So give me Nebraska. I don't like this hook in here. -7.5 against the Fighting Illini tonight. And look, if you're on your Circus Sportsbook app in Illinois, you can't bet on this in Illinois. But hey, road trip it, 3.5 hours. Go to KC, put your money down, and then drive back home. And then after the game tonight.
You can also go to Tennessee, have a good night in Memphis, enjoy yourself out on Beale Street. You can find a way to make this thing work. You can't do it on the Circus Sports app in Illinois, but there are other states in which you could go and just open up,
go to Nashville. I got to go to bed early.
Just go to Vegas. Go to the real. Look,
go to the resort, baby.
Spur of the moment. Yeah.
T-Bone will go with you. Go to their swim-up bar. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Swim. All right, Alex, your 2-point play is what?
2-point play. I'm sticking with another NFL game, and I am taking another underdog. I am taking the Bears +1.
I thought about this one,
Not
too.
really an underdog, but I mean, YOLO offense for your boy Anthony Richardson is not going to work against this Chicago offense. I know it's in Indy, and I know the Colts are going to be a little pissed off at how their season has gone thus far, but I still think that Chicago defense is going to make life hell for the Indianapolis Colts offense. I don't know what Caleb Williams is going to look like. Frankly, it might still be ugly. I don't care. I think the Bears win this one because of their defense. I don't think the Colts are ever in this game.
This is the Anthony Richardson breakout game. It's coming, boys. This is the week.
Where he's like 14
Also,
for 29.
Indy can't stop the run, so who cares about Caleb Williams? They're just going to run the ball the whole game.
You're 100% correct, and that's why I wanted to avoid this game. There's just too many variables for me. Like, I sat here and looked at that line for like 10 minutes this morning, thinking to myself, I should be picking one of these sides, because it's essentially a pick 'em.
Yeah.
I just have no confidence on either side of it. Could the Colts end up having a huge game out of Anthony Richardson? He throws for like 260 on 15 completions.
YOLO.
And 3 touchdowns. Absolutely he could. And do I think that the Bears have it in them to score 27 points right now? I'm not sure they do. And I think that's what it would take in that scenario. I also think the Bears could run for 200 yards in this game. And so I don't have enough confidence on either side to pick it. But if you feel a specific kind of way in this game, this is a game that you should be picking going into this weekend. All right, my 2-point play. T-Bone, I mentioned earlier, we might be coming back to this game.
Now he's going bandy.
The Missouri Tigers have not yet been able to unlock their explosive passing game this season. Vanderbilt's defense on a play-by-play basis has been pretty decent so far this year, with one exception. They give up way too many explosive plays. We finally saw it start to develop last week in the second quarter. You get Luther Burden involved. He's a walking touchdown every time he touches the football. I think Burden goes off this week. Missouri, big. They win by 30, 48-17 in this game against the Vanderbilt Commodores. Give me the Tigers. Give me the Missouri Tigers big. M-I-Z. Let's go, baby.
T-Bone, correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't we heard this before? This feels like deja vu, doesn't it?
They did not cover against Boston College.
They did not.
That was my 1-point play last week.
By the
I'm
way,
much more confident this week.
This is the final straw. This is the final straw before I hit the panic button if the offense isn't explosive.
It's going to happen this week.
So,
if it doesn't, ooh, buddy.
I hope you're
Missouri
right, pal. My number 2 pick, I'm going to the NFL. I don't trust the Detroit Lions defense. I have not been impressed the first 2 games. Meanwhile, I like what I'm seeing from Kyler and that Cardinals offense. I like the Arizona Cardinals at home against the Detroit Lions +3. I don't think Hutchinson's going to be able to sack Kyler 5 times. And if that's not the case, then I think Detroit's defense struggles. So give me the Arizona Cardinals +3 against the Detroit Lions.
This was almost my 3-point play, but I just can't bet against Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. I can't. And especially for how last week went, I don't think they're going to lose this one. So that's why my 3-point play is a favorite in this one. And it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you gentlemen know who the Chargers' backup quarterback is?
No.
Easton Stick, ladies and gentlemen. And Justin Herbert's on a little bit of a bum ankle right now. Do you know how many rushing yards the Steelers have given up in the first 2 games of the season?
What is the answer to that?
68 to Bijan Robinson in the first one, and they gave up.
I thought you meant total.
Well, I mean,
I was like, whoa.
let me get to it. Last week against Denver, gave up a combined 65 rushing yards.
Oh, okay. So 130 yards. Come on, man.
And guess what the Chargers like to do? Run the ball. Only an Easton Stick under center. I think that's going to be an easy 1-point favorite for me. I think Steelers win that one, no problem. That is my 3-point play.
I think Herbert's playing this week.
Well, he's very limited right now. He's got a taped up ankle. Guess what happens when just TJ Watt falls on top of you? Easton Stick is going to...
I have no faith in the Steelers' offense, and I couldn't even touch that one if I wanted to. Because I could see the Chargers walking out victorious.
I don't either, but I don't trust that Chargers offense against that defense.
All right, now for the game of
the
week. The game of the week that everybody's going to be watching at 11 a.m. on ESPNU in this college football slate.
What? ESPNU?
It's the game of the week.
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked that College Game Day isn't going to this one.
Oh, it's totally Lindenwood.
Tulane is 1-2 on the season.
What?
They are going on the road to face the Louisiana Don't Call Me Lafayette Ragin' Cajuns.
took you to this game, man?
I'm not watching this one, so tell me how it goes.
What took you to this?
Tulane, you're getting real value here because they are 1-2, and so the record is going to get people off of the scent of what is actually a pretty damn good football team right now. They played K-State real close and honestly probably should have won that football game. Last week had a couple of bad plays, ended up losing by 2 touchdowns against Oklahoma. I think this is a really good team, and I think because they played against 2 Power 5 opponents early on in the season, people are going to view them as being less than what they actually are. Meanwhile, Louisiana's undefeated because they played Kennesaw State and Grambling in the first 2 weeks of the season. I think Tulane wins this thing by 2 touchdowns. The line on this game is only 2.5 points in favor of Tulane. Give me Tulane. Let's go Green Wave. Winning by 2 scores in a game that is an easy pick for me.
How is it
3 points, bada boom, bada bing, let's go. Getting right back into this thing.
How is it that last night we're all doing our lines for these games and BK comes across Tulane and is like, oh, 3-point play.
In his defense, I almost went with a MAC team as my 3-point play. I almost went Northern Illinois over Buffalo. They're like favored by 14. That Buffalo team stinks.
I'm actually surprised you guys didn't pick Tulane against Louisiana.
Yeah.
I feel
Shame
like
on
I'm
me,
getting
man.
good value here.
And, it is great value. I just don't want to watch that football
ESPNU,
game.
11 a.m.
No.
Dude, wake up, put on game day, and then just flip over to ESPNU.
Shame on me, Shame on me for not looking at that.
All right, my 3-point play, it's a pick 'em essentially. I don't believe the Baltimore Ravens are going to get it figured out on their offensive line this week, which means Micah Parsons is going to have a field day. The Cowboys' defense is going to be all in Lamar's face. I think it's going to be close, but since it's only a 1-point line, I like the Dallas Cowboys +1 against the Baltimore Ravens. I think they win that game by a field goal or a touchdown, which means I cover. So give me the Cowboys +1.
This NFL slate was as hard as I've seen in terms of picking against the spread this week. And I think part of that is just because, so many of these games feel like pick-ems one way or the other. I didn't know how to feel about that Ravens-Cowboys game. I really don't. I think the Cowboys are the better team. I'm definitely not certain of that because the Ravens have stunk most of the first 2 weeks of the season. They might have been broken emotionally in that game against the Chiefs where they were literally a toe out of winning that game. And the Cowboys looked unprepared to play football last week. Just completely unprepared defensively. So I don't know how to feel about that one, and that's the way that I feel about a lot of these games. And then some of them, I'm like, okay, I'm definitely leaning 49ers over the Rams. 6.5?
Yeah.
It's a big spread in that one, man.
And I think that one, I don't think the Rams win, but I think they keep it closer. I think a lot of people are going to look at that Cardinals game and overreact.
This is a classic teaser week to me. Give these games down that are at 6 and get them down to a pick 'em. Some of these games that are 3 points, get it up to 9 in terms of the plus. Those are the types of lines that I like this week. It's typically not a way that I like to bet. This week, I think it makes some sense. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. A pivotal week 3 in our football pick'em challenge.
Look at that tape job on Justin Herbert's foot. That guy ain't playing. He's in a boot
on Sunday. There's no doubt about it.
He's in a boot.
He's never going to throw the football because it's Jim Harbaugh as his quarterback. It's fine.
Well, that's fantastic.
Absolutely fine.
That's right where I need him.
Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But next, the Blues might have the defenseman that they've been looking for. And is this Alexei Toropchenko's breakout year? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night, the Cardinals wrapped up the series against the Pirates with a 3-2 loss, but they made out of that series with a 3-1 record. They are back in action tonight, facing off against the Guardians. Ben Lively is pitching for Cleveland, and big number 44, Kyle Gibson, is getting the start for the Cards. First pitch is at 7:15. And the St. Louis Blues continue day 2 of training camp, which means BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live at the Centene Community Ice Center. We've already heard from defenseman Matt Kessel today, and if you missed that interview, make sure to check it out at 101ESPN.com. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
More Blues talk more often. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
On BK. So, Alex, you've been smitten by one of the new Blues defensemen. His name is Philip Broberg.
Absolutely.
He's very large.
Yeah, he is.
He's an excellent skater.
Yeah, he is.
He's great at defensive zone exits.
Oh, speaking my language.
In other words, the 3 characteristics that the Blues have been looking for in a defenseman literally since Alex Pietrangelo left. So it's been like 5 years, and they've been looking for this style of player. Now, that doesn't mean that Philip Broberg's going to come in and immediately be a number 1 or top pair defenseman. I'm not comparing him to Petro, and nobody should. That's completely unreasonable to compare this kid to an all-time great player in this organization. Alex, that being said, he is exactly the kind of player that they've been looking for. You have now been able to get very small, but a sample size nonetheless, of seeing him on the ice against players that you understand what they look like, and you have a grasp of, okay, contextually, what does this look like compared to the guys that I'm watching him with? What have you seen so far from Philip Broberg, and has it made you more or less excited about what he could be for the Blues?
I've seen a guy that immediately steps in as probably one of the best skaters on this roster, which is hard to say. I mean, you do have some really smooth skaters in terms of Jordan Kyrou, who was the fastest skater in the NHL. I think Colton Parayko is underrated in his skating abilities in terms of how fast he is and how big he is. But the moment, and again, this is 2 days of training camp, so you can understand how I get way too excited. The moment I watched Philip Broberg today and yesterday for 10, 15 minutes, you just see how flawless he is on his skates, how he can transition from front to back, how he can move the puck north fast, and how he can skate out of trouble. And again, these are lines that they're just running drills with. But just a couple of times I've seen him go behind the net backhanded and then just change transition routes immediately and then skate it out of the zone with one quick pass. I'm looking at it, and it does feel like I'm looking at Jay Bouwmeester right now. And if you go back and look at when they traded
somebody really smart, that's a big-time hockey.
You're right. Mark Spector said it. Mark Spector said it.
I thought he was talking about me. I said that one.
Of TSN, Mark Spector, one of the great minds in hockey, was the one that brought that one up.
Okay.
Like a gazelle out there.
Like a gazelle. But when you're watching Jay Bouwmeester, just go back and think about what the Blues did when they found him and got him from Calgary, and then what changed on their defensive structure for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, all the way up to them winning the Stanley Cup. Bouwmeester was one of the best skaters in the National Hockey League. Now, Broberg's going to be tough to get to that level. But I was looking at NHL Edge during the commercial break, which does all those advanced analytics that get BK way too excited. The last 3 years, the Blues have spent 45% or more time in their own zone, which is below 50th, or the bottom 5-10 teams in the National Hockey League. And now enter a Philip Broberg who skates so seamlessly out on the ice. That instantly raises the ability to get the puck out of your zone faster, which, guess what, guys, means you're in the offensive zone for longer.
I like that then.
See? Defensively, you have improved.
And I knew I got it right when I said he was just like Jay Bouwmeester.
Dude,
he does look.
You and I, man.
He does look great so far in training camp, and the small bits that we have seen. And now you pair him with Falk, and if you get the bounce back from Justin Falk, now you don't have Falk and at the time, or last year, Krug, who it felt like was turning the puck over a lot, get pinned in their zone. That's how you get stuck with that kind of number that you're talking about.
That pairing was the exact same player, just on two separate sides of the ice.
And now I don't know if you feel so, what would be the word, lopsided as to where you have to start them. Like, you could never start Falk and Krug in the defensive zone on a faceoff. Now you kind of have more balance to where Parayko and Leddy don't have to take every draw defensively in that spot.
You got 3 pairs now that I'd feel comfortable starting in the
Kessel
defensive zone.
Suter can do that. I would probably still avoid a little bit of Broberg and Falk until we see it, because Falk is more offensive-minded in my opinion. But now you can use that second pairing to use a defensive zone draw, because now you don't have Torrey Krug that's on the ice where you don't want him starting in the defensive zone. Really, you don't want him in the defensive zone, period.
You have answers that you didn't have a year ago.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most important thing, is like, there are times where you can't avoid it. There are times where you just have to have one of these guys that we're talking, like one of these pairs that's not ideal to be in your defensive zone, is starting in your defensive zone. Right. Like last year they did it as well. It wasn't every single shift that Krug and Falk were playing was starting in either the neutral zone or on the offensive zone. Like that you can't do that as a hockey team. Eventually, your next pair's coming over those boards, man. And so last year I felt like you were very limited. It almost felt kind of like an Ollie Marmol managed team where he's trying to play the platoons, but on one side of the platoon you have a guy that's got an OPS of like 600 against right-handed pitchers, and on the other side of the platoon you have a guy that's got like a 580 OPS against lefties. Like what exactly am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
What exactly am I supposed to do here? Yeah, I'm playing the splits, but none of the splits are good. So why am I playing them this way? That's kind of how it felt last year at times, and it's felt that way over the last couple of seasons, and not just defensively, but also with like the third and at times the fourth line. You're like, okay, well, we've got 6 dudes that we trust. We're going to try to kind of move them around in our 4 lines and see how that works. And then eventually they're like, okay, we're going to consolidate this to just the top 2 lines. You have depth now with your forwards, and you have 3 defensive pairings that, even if they're not great, I kind of like them. Kind of like all 3 defensive pairings so far, and you have 2 goalies that you trust. First time I've been able to say that during this retool era.
And in theory, what was one of the biggest issues they had offensively last year? They didn't get it was one and done offensively.
Yeah, they had a lot of offensive.
The inability to keep the puck alive.
Definitely one of them.
One of the top 3. But the reason I bring that up is because, in theory, if you can get out of your zone quicker, if the Broberg and Falk pairing can get out of the zone quicker, they don't get pinned in there as deep as often. Now you've also got the lines that you can hopefully, okay, we're out of the offensive zone, and then rather than just skating it up the ice, dumping it and going for a line change, you can dump it in, chase after it, try and get on the cycle, which they want to do, play a heavy style. Like, that's one of those things that can also help, because last year, now they weren't really constructed to play that style, but also last year when they would get pinned down in their zone a lot, it would be kind of, okay, we finally got it out, we just got to dump it down the ice, well, we got to get a line change, and now we got to get back and defend again.
Yeah, you were gassed, so you had no offensive ability. You just had to get it out so you could get off the ice, and the problem with that is the other team realizes you're in bad shape, so the moment you dump it, they get it go back down your throat. The other thing with Broberg that I'm most interested in, and I've been outspoken about how I do believe this could be a bounce-back year for Justin Falk. They're 2 opposites. Falk likes to get involved in the offense, but guess what Falk has had to be these last couple of years? A defensive-minded defenseman, because his pairing mate likes to be in the offensive zone. Broberg prefers to be a defensive defenseman who has an offensive upside. And go back to what Matt Kessel was telling us a little bit ago. Bannister likes to have the weak side defenseman jump into play. If he's the last guy up the ice, meaning Philip Broberg, you get him to jump into the play. It's the exact same thing that Jay Bouwmeester did with Alex Pietrangelo when they were together, and then what he did with Colton Parayko in 2018-2019. Parayko would jump into the rush. Bouwmeester was the weak side defenseman that would jump up if he need to, and that 18-19 season was the year that Parayko scored 10 goals for the Blues.
From a new addition to a guy that's entering year 4 with the St. Louis Blues, Alex, we were watching the group that included Robert Thomas, Broberg, Jordan Kyrou was out there as well. The best player on the ice this morning that we saw, at least the most impressive, the guy that made the most plays that stood out, was Alexei Toropchenko.
Totally.
He was the best player that we saw earlier today. And he was like, every breakout opportunity that he had, he seemed to be finishing. His speed was on full display. He looks somehow a little faster again this year. Is this a breakout season for him? And if so, what does that look like, Alex?
I say absolutely. I know I'm the one saying it, but he scored 14 goals last year, guys, playing 62 games and averaging 12 and a half minutes.
82 games, but yes.
Or 82 games. Sorry, I looked at the 69 and then the 82. Now, imagine what they're going to do if he's playing third-line minutes for you. And I don't know where he's going to be.
I hope they don't.
I hope they don't, because they've got guys who could do more.
Correct.
But I love the way Toropchenko plays, and if the other guys aren't performing, Toropchenko could give you 15 goals. Like, breakout season, I mean, that dude put up 29 points last year, 14 goals and 7 assists, averaging 12 and a half minutes. If he gets 2 more minutes average, I mean, that guy could be a 30-point scorer for you. 15 goals, 15 assists. I don't think that's out of the question for Toropchenko.
I'm not sure that I could see the assist number. He just doesn't pass enough.
Depends on who he's playing with, though, because
I was gonna say,
sometimes it bounces off of you and in front of the net, you get those assists.
I think he could be a 15 to 20 goal scorer. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but with the transition game that he brings to the table, like he was at 14 goals last year, and I think he could be better this year. I also think that I would like to see him on the fourth line for the entirety of the season. Unless, again, like you said, Alex, either guys are just not performing in the top 9 or there's injuries that take place.
If Matthew Joseph's not having the offensive upside you kind of expected, then you move Torpo up there and you drop down Matthew Joseph. There you go.
Or you bring up Bolduc. Like, this is the other thing to me is you have other answers with young players. Don't rush them. Don't force it into the lineup. But if they look like they're potentially ready, I would just go with those guys over an Alexei Toropchenko higher in the lineup. I think Alexei Toropchenko, to me, is kind of where I've fallen with, like, I'm trying to think of a good example. You know what? Andre Palante. It's Andre Palante. Andre Palante is never going to be a front-end starting pitcher for the Cardinals.
Correct.
Never. And he shouldn't be asked to be. But he's a really, really good 4th or 5th starter for you, and you need those guys. Alexei Toropchenko is a borderline elite 4th-line player, and I think anytime you ask him to be in your top 9, you're potentially asking him to be a little bit more than what you want him to be. Just let him go out there and skate like hell up the ice and hit everything that's coming in his way, and that is the exact role of a 4th-line player. Like, he just fits that role to a T, kind of similar to Oscar Sundqvist to me. I feel the same way about Radek Faksa, personally. Yep. I just think you have guys that fit into the roles that you're asking them to be on that 4th line finally this year. Just allow them to be that and don't ask them to be something that they're not.
Oscar Sundqvist, the year they won the Cup, 14 goals, 17 assists, 31 points. Now, I don't have the ice time that they were averaging up in front of me, but that's who I think Toropchenko could be in terms of the upside. Never going to be a 25-goal scorer for you. Never going to be in your top 6. But guess what? If you need to plug a hole for a week, you can put him up there, and he'll probably produce for you. But if anything, you'll have a 4th line that you can deploy just as much as your 3rd line. Now it's not, because the last 5 years has been you've got a 4th line that you can only throw out there in certain situations. You might legit have a 4th line of a Toropchenko, Sundqvist, Texier, Toropchenko, Joseph, however you want to go about it. But you might have a legit 4th line that could go out there with 2 guys who could be 15 goal scorers and a line that you trust in the offensive zone just as much as you do in the defensive zone.
Yeah. And that's something that very few teams can be able to say that they have. The Blues potentially have that this year. I just hope they keep them together. Allow them to develop some chemistry. Allow them to go out there and be in the roles that they should be asked to be in. This is not a shot at Toropchenko because everybody wins in different ways, right? Everybody has different skills as a hockey player. I think Jamie said this to us a couple of years ago about like why specific players do and don't work together, right? And he said like some guys just don't see the ice the same way. I don't think Toropchenko sees the ice the way that like Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich do. I'm not even sure he necessarily like would be the best fit on that 3rd line right now with like a Holloway and a Joseph or somebody like that, right? He fits really, really well, though, on that 4th line with the way that those guys view the ice together. So keep him there. Let's see what it looks like by the end of the season. I'm with you, Alex. I think 15-plus goals is very much in his range.
By the way, real quick, that Sunny season, 18-19, averaging 13 minutes and 49 seconds of ice time, 30 points. If you give Torpo that average ice time, I think you can get 15 goals and 30 points.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, we're diving into the junk drawer. T-Bone's got a story for us here on BK and Ferrario.
for exclusive Blues training camp coverage on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are live at Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Brought to you by Fenton Bar and Grill. Best trashed wings in Missouri. Dine in, carry out, 7 days a week.
All right, let's dive into the Junk Drawer. T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
Guys, how much you go to the movie theaters now? Do you go a lot or no?
Very rarely. It has to be a big-time movie or one that me and Kara are both interested in to really get us out there. Like, we went to see Barbie in theaters. We went to see Top Gun 2 in theaters.
Obviously.
It's been a couple of years then, huh?
Big-time Marvel movies we'll go to. So, typically, like, the high-level blockbusters.
T-Bone went to the first movie that I had gone to pre-COVID when I went and saw Deadpool and Wolverine.
That was your first?
That was the first movie I had gone to since pre-COVID.
Glad I got to be part of the
You're welcome,
experience.
man. Yeah, I'm glad you were as well.
So
Also, my bladder doesn't hold up as well as it used to.
We just talked about this
It's
off
the
air. You're
Avatar.
getting old.
Yeah, very good.
Avatar, good.
That's true.
Good movie. The reason I bring that up is because multiple chain movie theaters over the next couple of years are planning to spend $2.2 billion to upgrade over 21,000 screens. They are going to upgrade their sound, projection, seating, dining experiences, and some theaters will add to that experience to really complete your night, by the way. They are going to be adding pickleball, zip lines, and bowling alleys.
Okay, so they're making
to
it
the
an
movie
entertainment
theater
center.
to the movie theater experience.
So they're just making it a bigger game room that you can go play in before the movie.
Why you would need that?
That's a lot of money to invest in a market that I don't know how it's going to continue.
Yeah. Well, like
Why would you trying to become Chicken and Pickle, but with a movie theater attached?
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, I get it. So basically what the mindset I would imagine is we got to get people here, and then when they're here, they'll spend more money to go see a movie because they're here.
That's not the way that I would approach. Like, I would think that, I mean, if you're going to a movie theater, you're going for the movies.
Yeah, but you go to the movie theater before the movie now 2-3 hours ahead of time so you can eat, so you can go do pickleball or zip line, and then it's like afterwards and it's like, oh yeah, let's go see our movie.
Yeah, the pickleball thing seems like a really weird combination with movies. Like the active plus movie.
How big is pickleball outside of this market?
Oh, it's huge.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive.
It even hit only Illinois, if you believe it.
There's not much that hit only Illinois.
Fastest growing sports in America. Just talk to somebody that plays pickleball. They'll let you know. It's like CrossFit was 7 years ago. That's pickleball now.
People that do yoga.
Vegetarians. I fit into all of these different criteria, by the way.
Are you a CrossFit guy?
He is so he's a yoga guy.
I did CrossFit back in the boom when it first started.
BK, there was a moment in his life where he was like, I could do American Ninja Warrior.
No chance.
Because he's like, I could totally do this.
You saw me try to hit a baseball. I do not have the
I-
athleticism for that.
I'm not sure he ever actually thought that. I do think he thought he could compete in like those CrossFit training things.
No, I knew I
okay,
didn't have
Mr.
that in me.
Olympic gold medal.
I didn't have that in me.
I know that's not me.
You guys have seen my legs. Those guys are
They're little tiny things.
They're typically like a little squattier, a little stronger in the lower half. That's not me, man. I've got the legs to run.
The only squatty I'm doing is on the squatty potty. That's about it.
I don't know that this is the direction that I would have gone. I could see, like, to your point on them going and staying, Alex, I could see saying, like, hey, we need to get people to come here before their movie. Instead of dinner and a movie taking place at two different places, how do we get them to come to dinner at a movie theater and then see a movie?
Because when
I could see that working, but I don't know. This is not necessarily the direction I would have gone.
When I was in high school, Ronnie's was doing that. Ronnie's was getting you there. You had the big game room. They had the food that you could eat when you sat in the cars. They had sports up on the television projector in that little area. You sat, you ate, you enjoyed your food, you went and played games, and then you went to a 9 o'clock movie. Like, me and my friends would get there at like 6 o'clock, and we would just hang out there. So it makes sense. The problem is investing that much money into that many theaters when you went through a abundance of theaters just closing themselves down. That doesn't seem like a successful business model.
I think they are able to do this because, like, I still think the movie theater industry, I don't think it's what it was, but it still is doing well. I mean, look at how many movies are making billions of dollars at the theaters.
Yeah.
So it's still doing well. The thing I don't understand is, like, I just can't imagine, like, saying playing pickleball and then, like, immediately going and sitting down to watch a movie.
Yeah, because you're sweaty.
And-
Maybe do the movie, then pickleball.
Yeah, but, like, most of the time you go, like, it's night, you know? Like, 7 o'clock, go see a movie, 6 o'clock, and then you want to play pickleball at like
Oh, man, I'm an old
8:30?
person. I'll go to like a 2 o'clock film so then I can have the rest of my day.
All right, Alex. So there's a new place in Dallas. Speaking of like something where you would go to watch football games. So this is kind of a movie theater style experience.
Oh, shoot. That's like an OmniMax.
It's wild, dude. It's like an immersive experience. So they almost have it set up as if you're in the stands at the game. And so, like, if you've got a big Saturday night college football game, for example, the way that they have these cameras, it's as if you're watching like an in zone view as they're getting ready to score a touchdown. It's like if they're inside of the red zone, they'll put you behind the end zone, dude, and you're like watching all of the action come to you. Now, this is something that I think has real potential. I think people will pay a premium to be indoors, get their drinks. You don't have to worry about like being in a 70,000 person stadium that you have to pay $30, $40 for parking, and it takes you an hour to get there, an hour to get home afterwards. You just want to hang out, and you can watch your game and others that are taking place simultaneously. This is kind of the atmosphere that Circa is going for in Las Vegas, but it's more immersive and it's indoors.
Man.
That, if they had something like that in St. Louis, I could see that working.
Yeah. That's what, I mean, you guys know me. I'm a guy that doesn't like to leave his house very often. I would pay money to go there. Like, I was just thinking UFC-wise. Imagine going to watch a UFC fight, and they have a camera angle that's on the side of the actual UFC octagon. Like, that is genius. Boxing matches, those big
They've got it
pay-per-view
for big
things.
soccer games, like EPL games. They'll show those in the morning.
Hockey playoffs. Imagine getting like behind the net on the glass perspective or on the bench. Like, I'm telling you.
Imagine if they had like a penalty box perspective where you're like seeing the game through the eyes.
That's what I'd be investing $21 million into if I'm a movie theater. Let's make it more of an immersive experience so I can go to sporting events.
It's costly. I would imagine the technology to do this is super expensive to be a part of. But that being said, I could see something like that having a grip on sports fans, especially now with the way that people are sports betting and it becomes legal more and more. Dude, that's the future.
The Masters on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
At the 18th hole, sitting there watching it. Oh, that would be incredible.
If you want to check out what we're talking about, it's COSM, I guess, in Dallas. That's what it's called. COSM in
country,
Dallas.
right? Is there one in LA
I think they've got
too?
one in LA, and I think that's it right now.
Let's the three of us. Jordan, you can be a part of this as well.
Oh, you want to go in
Let's
and
all
invest in
put
this?
money in together to do it in my basement.
Okay. Well, we want a place at the
We're
party.
gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
No, you're not. No, it's good. I'll
Vote of
eliminate
money
all
and
furnitures. It'll be fun.
good.
We'll put it all down there.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, Paul Goldschmidt might be playing his final games in a Cardinals uniform at Busch Stadium this weekend.
Oh, sorry.
If that's the case.
Tickle in my throat.
How's he going to remember? How will you be remembering the Paul Goldschmidt era here in St. Louis? Won an MVP, didn't win a whole lot else. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
ESPN has you covered. BK and Ferrario are coming to you live from Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Chance, not 100%, but a decent chance that this weekend, Alex, is going to be the final time that Paul Goldschmidt ends up putting on a Cardinals uniform and walking out onto the field at Busch Stadium as a member of this organization, as a player. If that is the case, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. How will his time here in St. Louis be remembered, Alex? Because it was objectively successful on the field if you're just looking at him from a player's perspective. Up until this season, highly, highly productive. Won an MVP in a Cardinals uniform, was top 20 in voting each of the other 3 seasons in a Cardinals uniform. And prior to this year, overall, was 38% above league average offensively. I don't know that you really could have asked for much more from him individually in his time in a Cardinals uniform. Again, prior to this season where he's become a league average bat for you. And at the age of 36, it fell off a cliff, which is reasonable and in line with the typical aging curve now in Major League Baseball. That being said, the addition of Goldie was supposed to come with more than one real run in the postseason. So how will you remember Paul Goldschmidt's time in a Cardinals uniform? It's a complicated legacy.
It is, and I'll remember it fondly, mostly because it had been a long time since we got to see an actual MVP on your roster. Like, I know there were guys who had MVP votes and played like MVPs, but, like, you legit saw not just an MVP, but the year prior he was 6th in MVP votings. Like, Paul Goldschmidt was awesome for his time here.
Entire list, sorry, Alex,
Go ahead,
to your
please.
point on that, the entire list of MVPs in a Cardinals uniform between Willie McGee in 1985 and today. Albert Pujols, who did it 3 times. Guy's amazing.
That was fun.
And Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah.
That says a lot about the level of player that we got to witness over the last few years.
And it's massive to me, and that's why I think you remember it fondly. From the moment he was acquired by the Cardinals, it was, holy bleep, the Cardinals just made a massive move. I know it was an older player, but he was 31 years old. You still knew you had the prime. So in terms of the individual, I'm going to remember it fondly because he was an incredible player. I think what dampens the legacy of Paul Goldschmidt isn't what Paul Goldschmidt did, it's what the Cardinals didn't do. Because Paul Goldschmidt should have been a part of a potential World Series team, but they never added enough pieces to make those teams dominant when you had a guy that played at MVP level. So, like, when he calls it a career, I'm going to remember those 4-year stretches where, like, this dude was hitting 30 home runs for you, 100 RBIs, was getting MVP votes. But you're also going to look back on the Paul Goldschmidt era and be like, damn, Cardinals didn't do enough. Cardinals didn't do enough to get back into a World Series contender mindset when you had guys who carried teams to a World Series.
I think that is really what I want to hone in on here is so much of Goldie's legacy is going to be defined by things that were beyond his control.
Yep.
I think Goldie, you look back on it and it's like, man, did he have the playoff success at the plate that you'd like to see? No, definitely not. But if they had put a better team around him, he should have had more success here. That year that he had in, 22,
yep.
When they ended up making the wild card game and he was the MVP that season, like him and Nolan Arenado, you just should have had a better team around him. And they missed. They missed their window. That was, looking back on it, the window for the Cardinals. Like 2021 to 2022 was the window that they had available to them, and they totally missed because of the pitching. They just never added enough pitching to be able to take advantage of it. That's not Paul Goldschmidt's fault, man. That's on the front office for not being able to surround him with the necessary amount of talent to be able to take advantage of the opportunity in front of them. And yet, he also didn't come through in the playoffs. Like, you look back at some of those series, you look back at the series against the Dodgers, you look back about the game against the Dodgers, you look back at the series against the Phillies and some of the late season collapses that they had, even in that 2022 year where he was struggling down the stretch, he didn't come through in some significant clutch situations. And so that is a part of the legacy as well. It's complicated. It's difficult to really define. I don't think there's an easy one-sentence thing. Like somebody on the text line said, BK wants everybody to say that it was a complete failure because he is a negative moron. I don't feel that way. This was not.
I was the negative moron.
Man, tough text.
Well, it's text line.
Yeah, I mean, fair.
I don't think you're a moron, buddy.
I don't. Thanks,
I think you're negative.
Well,
however you feel. I do not think that it was a complete failure at all. The dude won an MVP, man.
Right, yeah.
And he was T-Bone's favorite player in a Cardinals uniform for an extended period of time for a reason, and it was a reasonable take. The dude was awesome. Such a good player and did all of the things correct. Like taking the extra base, stealing bases. He consistently had like 10 stolen bases in his time here in St. Louis as well, hitting all the doubles. Guy's awesome. Gold Glover at first base. It's just, I think his time here is going to be remembered as a disappointment, not a failure, because of what the team was not capable of doing while he was on it.
Yeah, that's where I am. I think it's going to be viewed as a disappointment or almost kind of forgotten the time of Paul Goldschmidt, the Goldie Arenado era, because it didn't lead to a lot of postseason success. You know, a lot of people will look at it and say Paul Goldschmidt didn't perform in the playoffs. Really, though, like you look at his numbers in his career with the Cardinals in the playoffs, I think this mostly stems from one playoff series against the Braves. He had an 820 OPS in the playoffs with the Cardinals, and he had slugged 517. Now, the average and on base wasn't there, but he hit for power. He did what's expected from your sluggers in the playoffs, which is hit for some pop, but he didn't have
How much of that was the
22.
2018 run, though?
I think a lot, just looking at this, it looked like a lot of it was in 2019. 22, he was good, or excuse me, 2020 in that little 3-game set, he was good. But yeah, 22, he wasn't.
I don't
That's
count
right.
that.
I forgot.
It's
The
like the
Dodgers still
no-hitters.
hasn't won a World Series.
Like those no-hitters. They don't count, man.
But I do think it's complicated because, to me, he's a Cardinals Hall of Famer because he's won an MVP with the birds on the bat. You know, he had 4 top 20 finishes in MVP voting. He was a guy that was a staple for the organization that they could put in that 2-3 spot in their order. And you knew for at least the first 4 years of the Goldie experience, you could write in pen what you were going to get for him. There's not a lot of guys that you can say that about across baseball. There's just a very handful of those guys that you can say that about. But I do think it's going to get overshadowed by the lack of playoff success, the lack of teams that are built around him. And honestly, I hate to say this, I almost feel like his 22 season gets a little kind of forgotten because when we always talk about 22, nobody talks about the Paul Goldschmidt season. They always go, man, Albert's second half. Okay, yeah,
Was
don't
that
get
the
me wrong.
Tyler O'Neill year, too?
No,
that was 21.
But
Tyler O'Neill year 17 straight, and then 2022, what it is remembered for is ultimately Albert's chase for 700.
And I think it kind of gets forgotten about Paul Goldschmidt. Like when I hear people talk about the 22 season, whether it be when we kind of bring it up on our show, or you hear even like Bally Sports Midwest on broadcast bring it up, it's never like, man, that was an unbelievable year from Paul Goldschmidt. Now, he struggled in the final month. He ended up winning the MVP, but he was awesome for 5 of the 6 months of the season.
Yeah, for like
but everybody just
120
remembers
games, he was
Pujols.
great.
Yeah.
And then for about 25, he was bad.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what he gets remembered for, unfortunately, right or wrong. I think this is a really good way to phrase it from the text line, from the 636. Guys, my favorite Cardinals players always have great postseason memories for me. It's a shame that we never were able to really get any of those from Paul Goldschmidt. And I think that really encapsulates it well in terms of what the disappointment is from the Paul Goldschmidt era, which is I don't think it's necessarily exclusively his fault that we didn't get those playoff moments. That being said, some of it is. Some of it is on Goldie. Yeah. He needed to come through in big spots. And, playoffs for most guys are a really small sample size. And you get remembered for the good and for the bad based upon that very small sample size. Look at the NFL. It's the same thing, right? Lamar Jackson, choker. Multi-time MVP. One of the best quarterbacks of this era. But has had, 3 bad games in the playoffs. Choker. That's how he's remembered. I mean, think about it with Clayton Kershaw, right? Potentially the last true ace that we will see in the way that he went about it. How's he going to be remembered? Choker.
Matt Adams' baby. Matt Adams is his daddy.
That's a great example of it. Matt Adams took a really good at-bat off of one of the best pitchers that we've ever seen in our lives and ever will see in our lives.
He got to retire a Cardinal because of it.
Amen to that. And then throw to Pedro
And in the meantime, Clayton Kershaw's legacy was complicated because of at-bats just like that. And because he's being utilized out of the bullpen, because the guy's willing to do whatever it takes to be a winner in the postseason. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work. But Goldie, Similarly, it didn't come through for him, man. He didn't have many opportunities in Arizona, and then when he did get them here in St. Louis, he didn't come through the way that all of us would have hoped, believed, or expected him to be able to do. Same thing's true for Arenado. So, yeah, it's unlike most all-time great Cardinals. In fact, I'd be curious on the text line, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Is there another all-time great Cardinal that has a similar legacy to what Goldie did here? Wins an MVP, but doesn't have that playoff success. Because most eras of Cardinals baseball, you had at some point the playoff successes that you can point to. I guess the closest thing would probably be McGuire.
I was going to say McGuire/Ray Langford.
Yeah, I guess that would be it as the closest comparison for what we're talking about here. And, of course, the McGuire legacy is even more complicated because of the PEDs that were associated with it.
He never won MVP either.
Yeah, it's a weird place to be. And so I'm excited to see Paul Goldschmidt back on the Cardinals.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, the good news is we're going to get 3 more years of it.
He's going to get another year to fix this legacy.
That's true, man.
Coming up next, speaking of all-time greats, did you guys see what Shohei Ohtani did yesterday? I've got one stat that I think puts it into perspective. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Wall-to-wall Blues coverage is right here on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center for Blues training camp. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Sends one in the air. Deep right field. He's in a world of his own. In 135 years of Dodger baseball, Shohei Ohtani, his 49 home runs, matching Shawn Green for the most in a single season. Oh my gosh! Shohei Ohtani, the greatest day in baseball history.
That was the Dodgers TV network yesterday. Joe Davis met the moment as Shohei Ohtani just put together what legitimately might be the greatest game ever played by a baseball player.
That was incredible.
And I'm not overstating this, Alex. This is a great stat that came from Opta Stats yesterday. And I think it puts into perspective what we witnessed last night from Shohei Ohtani. Since the RBI stat became official in 1920, so 100 years of Major League Baseball is what this is encapsulating. Only one Major League Baseball player has had, over the course of his entire career, whether it's individually all in the same game or literally scattered from like one game in the first year of his career, the next game in the 8th year of his career, whatever. One player in Major League Baseball history has had over the course of his entire career a game with 10 RBIs, a game with 6 hits, a game with 5 extra base hits, a game with 3 home runs, and a game with 2 stolen bases. Only one player has ever had that combination of games in their respective career. It was Shohei Ohtani, and he did it all in one game last night. Can you believe that, dude? This guy we are legitimately witnessing a modern-day better version of Babe Ruth. Like, that's what's happening right now. Dudes that have had, I texted this to one of my buddies last night. If you look at his OPS plus, it's 170 for the 3rd consecutive year, guys. 173 consecutive seasons of doing that. Guys that have done that in the last 25 years, it's Pujols, Trout, Miggy, some guy by the name of Barry Bonds, and then Jason Giambi, which was aided, and Jim Thome. That's it. And oh, by the way, did I mention that Shohei Ohtani was also one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball for the last few years? And the only reason he's not pitching this year is because he's currently rehabbing to potentially help his team as a reliever down the stretch this season.
Oh, and he will be a reliever and probably be a part of a big moment.
I can't even grasp what we're watching right now with Shohei Ohtani, dude. Oh, but he also got to 50 and 50 yesterday, which has never been done before in the history of Major League Baseball. 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in his first year playing as a non-pitcher.
Yeah.
What?
It was incredible. So, peek behind the curtain. So, last night, like, I'm watching the Jets game. I'm kind of flipping back and forth with the Cardinals game, and then I get an alert on my phone that Shohei Ohtani hits that, what was that, in the 3rd inning? He hit the double to center field, and they were like, oh, he's 2 for 2 in the game. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I flipped over to it. Like, that was 4 innings before he even hit his first home run. And I was glued to the television because it's like, dude, Ohtani is, like, red hot right now. And then he goes on later, 6 for 6 with 3 home runs later in the game. Guys, I don't stay up late and watch Dodgers games. We all know what time those games start.
Yeah, they start when you go to bed.
Yeah, I flipped over and I'm like, I am glued to this now. Luckily, I had a kid who needed to eat at 12 o'clock, so I was able to watch a majority of it. But, like, that's the gravitational pull of Ohtani. Now, he had the same thing when he was with the Angels. L.A. market, you're still doing stuff that has never been done in baseball, but now you're a part of a team that actually knows how to win. So, like, I think everybody is glued to Shohei Ohtani this season. And, again, the dude hasn't even pitched yet for the Dodgers.
Yeah, for how good he's been offensively this season, I can't believe I'm even saying this. He shouldn't pitch next year. Like,
I want to see him because I want to see if he goes 50 and 50 and then leads Major League Baseball in strikeouts.
I just don't think he can do this kind of offensive performance when he's pitching because he's asking too much for his body. But it's unbelievable what we're seeing from him, you know, and the fact of the matter that he is doing this while rehabilitating from a major arm surgery is unbelievable. Like, I thought for sure he was going to be slowed down buy this. I thought you were going to see a dip in his offensive numbers. I certainly didn't expect him to be out there running around like a gazelle trying to steal 50 bases.
Saw it.
And, like, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being 55 and 55 this year.
Have you guys seen his caught stolen numbers? He's been caught 4 times this year. Like, he essentially has become, for the Dodgers, as a base stealer, what every other player in Major League Baseball has become as a base stealer against Ivan Herrera. To put in context his stolen base success rate, like, the Cardinals catcher, Ivan Herrera, has been so bad at throwing this year that the Cardinals effectively said, no more. You can't be behind the plate.
Stop it.
Go back down to AAA. We're going to put you on a throwing program because of how much this is harming us when you're behind the plate. And that's what Shohei Ohtani is right now as a base runner. And that's just one of the aspects of his game in which he is also leading Major League Baseball in home runs and runs scored and RBI and slugging percentage and OPS. And he's done most of those things for each of the past 2 seasons now. I didn't know how he was going to be able to live up to that contract just in terms of the baseball production, right? Like revenue-wise, he's going to bring in enough that it will pay off tenfold for the LA Dodgers to bring in Shohei Ohtani, no doubt about it. But on the baseball field, for him to actually be worth the amount of money that they're paying him was going to be really, really difficult.
I'd even argue he's underpaid.
And somehow he has. He has not only lived up to that hype and those expectations, but he has exceeded them in the first year of his time in LA. Unbelievable.
You know what my first thought was watching it last night? Shame on the Cardinals for not going after him. Shame on the Cardinals. That's where you spend the money, right, T-Bone? Go after those guys.
Just sad he did it in Miami. Why couldn't it be at like a full ballpark?
If BK would have been there, he would have been at a restaurant and been late for the game.
No, we would have been at a restaurant and wouldn't have gone to the game because the friends decided, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm sure you'll see it again. And I would have said, no, I will literally never see this again in my life. I'm not bitter. All right. So
sure.
The thing is, though, like as great as Shohei Ohtani has been this season, the Dodgers haven't even won 60% of their games this year. They're 91 and 62. They're a really good team, but they're not at the same level as they have been in previous seasons. And guys, this is the case across baseball. Like there just have not been the super teams that there have been in recent years. There's not a single team in Major League Baseball this year with a winning percentage of 600 or better. Not a single team. Nobody is currently on pace to win at least 100 games. This would be the first time that we haven't seen a team with at least a 60% winning percentage, if that stays, in the regular season since 2013. In fact, it would be the first year that we haven't had at least 3 teams win 60+% of their games, Alex, since 2016. Throw out 2020, fake COVID season, doesn't count. We did have those teams, but just throw that up for a second. Since 2016, we haven't seen this. Are we entering a new era of Major League Baseball? Because we had that super team era from like 2016 to essentially last year. Are we seeing a shift? Or was this just a weird year where a bunch of guys got hurt from the Braves and the Dodgers had like 3 rotations go on the injured list? Or is this the start of something that you think is going to be a little different for the foreseeable future?
I kind of wonder if it's going to be the start of something different. I saw an X thread from Travis Sawchek, who writes for The Score, who was talking about this, and he basically said he wonders if teams just don't have the incentive to go all in anymore because so many teams are getting in, and you're seeing teams that have success. I forgot the percentage you put out there, but like teams that have won the World Series, 44% of them haven't had 100-point seasons in a certain amount of date frame. But I do wonder if teams just look at it now and say, like, hey, we can get into the playoffs. Like, Minnesota Twins are going to be a playoff team, and they cut salary. There's a lot of teams that I wonder that look at and say, what's the point of going all in, spending all of the money, and becoming one of these juggernauts when we're going to get into the playoffs, and these juggernauts are typically losing in the first or second round of the postseason?
Yeah, I think that plays a part of it. I also am starting to wonder, because this is a year of the pitcher that we're seeing, I'm starting to wonder if you're able to build a super team if pitching is going to be this good. And the reason I say that is because when you think of a super team, what do you think of? You don't really go, oh, look at their pitching. It typically helps, but you think about their offense. Like, we all thought the Dodgers were going to be a super team. Why? Not because of their rotation, though we liked it. It was because they have Ohtani, Betts, and freaking Freeman as their 1, 2, 3. I wonder if we're seeing pitching is so good that we've talked about this in the past. A good pitcher typically shuts down a good hitter, unless his name's Ohtani. But I wonder if because pitching has gotten to such another level that it's going to really hamper us from seeing these quote-unquote super teams. Because I still feel like there are some really loaded teams in baseball.
Yeah.
The Braves dealt with injuries this year, but like the Dodgers are a really good team still. And they've still got, even though they got a ton of pitchers on the IL, they've got some pitching. I just think we're seeing so much good pitching around baseball that it's really slowing down offenses. And without a legitimately great offense, I don't think you can get to 100 wins.
Here's that stat, BK. Sorry, I couldn't pull it up earlier. In the wild card era dating back to 95, only 6 100-plus win teams won the World Series. 13.9% success rate out of the total of 43 teams to reach 100 wins.
I don't really know what to make of that. Like,
I don't either. He just pointed out that, like, teams just don't feel the need to go for it anymore.
yeah, that's one of those stats that's kind of tough because, like, it's really hard to win 100 games, and then it's also really, really hard to win the World Series, and that's going back to 1950?
1995.
1995. Okay, so then you've got, like, the changes in the format as well that kind of go into. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of that. I think if I'm an owner, though, and I see a stat like that, my reaction is, well, then why are we building a team to win 100 games? Why not just, like, build to win 90
and
then
Minnesota Twins
get
have
into the
success
playoffs?
like that? It's like, why aren't we doing this?
The Diamondbacks last year, like, why not
Kind
just
of the Royals, too.
the Cardinals for a decade? That's why teams are kind of aiming for the middle. We also had a couple of people that said that the change in scheduling could lead to some of this as well. And there's definitely that as well. If you have a really bad division, you can beat up on your division. It boosts the number of wins overall. But I would have thought that, like, this year, for example,
AL Central, like the Guardians. I think the Guardians went 15-1 against the White Sox. Somebody in that division went like 15-1 against Chicago. It might have been the Royals, actually.
yeah, the White Sox are one of these teams. But even beyond that, like the AL West. They've got three pretty good teams in Houston, Seattle, and Texas. None of them are on pace to win 60% of their games, despite having Oakland and LA to be able to beat up on over the course of the season.
You think the Brewers would be up on the? Oh wait.
The NL East, Nationals and Miami Marlins are not good.
Yeah.
And
NL West,
none
the
of those teams
Rockies.
are on pace for 100 wins. So it is kind of strange to me that you have no teams this year that are going to be able to meet that threshold, most likely. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up next, let's get into our NFL weekend look ahead. The matchup you're most looking forward to, the upset you guys think that we're going to see. There are more options in that regard going into this weekend. We'll get into it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Cardinals wrapped up the series against the Pirates with a 3-2 loss. They're back in action tonight against the Guardians. Ben Lively is pitching for Cleveland, and Kyle Gibson is getting the start for the Cards. First pitch is at 7:15. The St. Louis Blues have wrapped up day 2 of training camp, and earlier we got to hear from defenseman Matt Kessel. If you missed that interview or anything else from the show today, be sure to check out the podcast at 101ESPN.com or from the free 101 mobile app. I'm Jordan Deacon. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
More Blues talk more often. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
All right, it's time for our NFL Weekend Look Ahead. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to see Brooks and Dunn concert that's taking place next spring, Alex. We've got your chance this week to win those tickets here on BK and Ferrario, and the Fast Lane will have one more opportunity for you later on this afternoon as well. So stay tuned for that. Right now, it's time for our Weekend Look Ahead. We do this every Friday leading into the Sunday slate, matchups of the week, upsets, overreaction Mondays, etc. We'll get into all of that over the course of the next 10 minutes or so. Alex, if you were sitting in front of your television on Sunday and you could only watch one NFL game this weekend, what are you going with, my man?
That 3:25 game, Cardinals and Lions. I think that's one of the most interesting games this weekend because I think those are two really competitive teams that legit have opened my eyes. The Lions not so much because I knew what they were, but the Cardinals have opened my eyes in terms of what they could potentially do this season. I think you got two teams that are playoff caliber offenses going up against each other. So Lions are looking for a bounce back. Cardinals are riding the high off of that Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. matchup. I think that one is going to be an exciting defensive-minded game, at least from Dan Campbell.
T-Bone?
I like that one. I'm going with the one that has the second highest over-under of the weekend, and it's the Saints and Eagles. I'm not sure how much I buy the Saints, but they're like the only team that knows how to throw the forward pass anymore in the NFL. So I want to see what that offense looks like. I don't buy into what the Eagles are defensively, but I don't buy into the Saints. I think it's going to be a shootout. I even like the over of the 49.5 in that game. I think it's going to be super fun.
All right, so I'm going to go with my third choice because you guys said I had four choices this week. My alternative one was going to be Houston, Minnesota. Alex, you had that as one of your picks of the week. Baltimore versus Dallas is a really compelling matchup because I don't know what happened last week with Dallas. It didn't make sense to me as I was watching New Orleans run up and down the field. Dallas looks completely unprepared to play that football game. They've been excellent at home over the last few years, and they got boat raced in that game. They're going to be ready to take on a pretty darn good Baltimore team that's sitting at 0-2 right now. One of these two teams we're going to leave this week, and either Baltimore's going to be 1-2 coming off of a big win on the road, but they've got Buffalo and Cincy coming up, two difficult AFC matchups, or Dallas could be sitting at 1-2. And you're talking about a team that was expected to come into the season to win the NFCs. Man, Baltimore might be 0-3. With those two other matchups that I just mentioned. So that, to me, is a huge game with massive implications for both playoff races. Baltimore versus Dallas, one of the games of the week, in my opinion. Alex, if you had to pick one upset going into this weekend, what are you going with, my friend?
I don't buy in any of, because upsets are 3 points or better, right, in terms of the line?
Yeah. This is a weird year so far. So if you want to go with one that's a little bit closer, feel free.
I mean, because look,
that's typically what I would say is like a real upset.
There's nothing 4 points or better in terms of upsets that
or a home underdog. I feel like kind of plays into that as well.
So the two
maybe
that
like a 5-point underdog on a neutral site.
The two that I look at that I'm like, okay, I could see it. One was the Dolphins, but I just don't buy into that without Tua playing. I think if I'm going to pick an upset, it's the Falcons over the Chiefs. It's only a 3-point line, so that's why it's hard to call it an upset. But I think on paper, you're going to look at that and be like, wait, Atlanta just beat Kansas City? I think not having Isaiah Pacheco is going to massively hurt that offensive game plan. I don't think Atlanta's this world beater, but I do think they unlocked a little bit of something offensively this last week. So I'm going to say that's my upset.
The other thing about that, like when you're a 3-point home underdog, that means if this was a neutral site game, they think the Chiefs are like 5 points better. If it was in Kansas City, the Chiefs would be like an 8-point favorite over the Atlanta Falcons. So that they are a pretty big underdog, even though it's technically only a 3-point line. T-Bone, what's your upset of the week?
All right, guys. don't watch this football game, okay? But I do think you're going to see an upset here. I think the Giants are going to beat the Browns. Their pass rush hasn't done a whole lot.
That on my line, too.
Their pass rush hasn't done a lot yet, and I thought it'd be pretty good this year. You got Lawrence, Thibodeau, you've got Brian Burns, who they acquired in the offseason, and so far the return has been flat. I could see where they have a breakout game, and when you have Deshaun Watson at quarterback, you can lose to anybody. So that line of 6.5 feels way too high to me. I think the Giants can go on the road and beat Cleveland.
It sounds like Garrett might not be playing in that game, too.
Yeah,
I'm totally with a foot.
That is my pick for this. I would go with the Giants as well. If you wanted a money line upset that's going to get you a decent amount of return, I would take the Giants on the money line and then the under 38.5 because I think that's how it happens.
And then don't watch that game.
Yeah, I don't think they can score a bunch of points, but if you got like a 20-13 type of a game, you could see something 20-16, something like that. That's the way you probably end up winning that one. If I was going to go with somebody else, I'll go with the Cardinals for all of the reasons that you mentioned earlier, guys. Cardinals going up against the Detroit Lions. That to me feels like a pick 'em. And instead, Detroit's a 3-point road favorite, so Vegas is telling you they think Detroit is quite a bit better. I think Kyler Murray has been the best quarterback that I've watched so far this season. He's been unbelievably impressive. Maybe we see it one more time. Picks apart that Detroit Lions secondary. Lions get into a shootout. If you're playing daily fantasy this weekend, that's a game that I would be targeting. There's going to be a lot of points put up in that game. Alex, your overreaction Monday game is what?
That the Saints are this dynamic team after being 3-0 on the season. I think they're going to be 3-0 because they've beaten 3 crappy teams. Cowboys, I can understand. I'd say crappy week for them. At the end of it, they're probably going to be better than this. But, like, you beat the Carolina Panthers, and sure, go out there and put 48 points up on the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't buy anything of that because I don't think the Eagles' secondary is very good. I think after potentially they go 3-0, they'll lose the next 3 games. I could see the Falcons giving them troubles, the Chiefs giving them troubles, and the Buccaneers giving them troubles. There's my overreaction. The dynamic offense of the Saints is here to stay.
T-Bone, can I go next?
Yeah.
My overreaction Monday is whatever happens in this Pittsburgh Steelers versus LA Chargers game. I don't know who's winning it. I think it's a legit pick 'em right now. But either team that wins will be 3-0 this season. Either team. Either the Pittsburgh Steelers will have started 3-0 with Justin Fields as their starting quarterback by scoring an average of like 15 points a game because they have a tremendous defense and now they were able to beat the Chargers. But they've done so against Atlanta, who their offense was inept in week 1, and then against Denver, who has the literal worst starting quarterback now that Bryce Young has been benched in the NFL. And then against the Chargers, against a quarterback that's on one leg right now, is currently limited in practice. And we don't know if the Chargers are actually any good or not. So that's one side of it. The other side is the Chargers doing the exact same thing against the Vegas Raiders, the Carolina Panthers, and the Steelers, who I don't think are particularly good. But whoever starts 3-0, we're going to have the conversation on Monday of, are they the playoff team that we didn't see coming in the AFC? So that, to me, that's going to be the overreaction Monday. Whoever ends up winning this game, we're going to be talking about as a playoff team. And I don't buy into either of them, even though one of them probably will end up getting into the playoffs, and then we'll all bet against them.
I like that one, and I kind of just coasted by it because I don't want to watch that football game this weekend, if I'm being completely honest. To me, it's the Lions and Cardinals game is one you're going to get the overreaction. I think if the Cardinals win, everybody's going to be a little out over their skis on Arizona. Though I do agree. I do think Kyler has been a top 5 quarterback in the NFL so far this year. But if I can have Sam Darnold in that list right now, what does that tell me? Not a lot. And then I think the other one will be the Lions. If the Lions win, I think they're winning in a shootout. And if that's the case, I think what's going to be overlooked is everybody's going to be like, oh, well, look at the Detroit Lions. They are fine. They're 2-1. When I think we're probably going to leave the weekend going, Detroit, your defense was supposed to be improved, and it's not still. So I think for me, that's the game that's going to be the overreaction game for Monday.
All right, so we have a little bit of news on this LA Chargers game.
Feeling good about my pick right now, boys.
Justin Herbert just told reporters that he suffered a high ankle sprain on Sunday against Carolina, and he's listed as questionable for this
He's ready
game.
for the Easton Stick era.
Guys normally miss 4 to 6 weeks with this kind of an injury, unless your name's Patrick Mahomes, and then you miraculously return the next week and somehow end up winning the Super Bowl. But most quarterbacks do not come back in 1 week in this kind of a game. So I would like to take back my overreaction Monday game. If the Steelers beat Easton Stick, nobody's going to be looking at that game and being like, oh, man, the Steelers 3-0. They're amazing. No, nobody's going to have that.
TJ Watt's going to go to town on the Chargers.
The reaction is going to be, man, how did Pittsburgh get such an easy schedule?
Instead, the overreaction will be on whoever loses that Ravens versus Cowboys game. It'll be the opposite effect of, are the Cowboys doomed? Is it over in Big D? Did they make a mistake in paying Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and this offense is just stuck in the mud? Or it'll be, the Ravens are done.
Well, they
it's
might
over.
be.
And it might be true, but like if they lose this weekend against Dallas on the road, and then they've got Buffalo and Cincy coming up,
Yeah, you might be
0-5 is legitimately on the table, and at that point, you are actually done.
You got to win like 10 or 11 games in a row at that point if you're even talking about the playoffs.
So that's the game that I would go with instead. Says I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think Justin Herbert's going to be playing.
Feel good about that three-point play.
That's a good line for you.
There's a lot of football games I'm not wanting to watch this weekend.
Yeah, that's true. Just another apple-picking weekend.
Tonight for Blues and Brews at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. Get fired up for the blues season at this outdoor street party. It features live music from country music star Matt Stell, plus appearances by Braden Shin, Jake Neighbors, Pavel Buchnevich, and Drew Bannister, so many others as well. Tickets on sale right now. You can check out all the details at 101ESPN.com. Blues and Brews is refreshed by Bud Light and by 101 ESPN. Coming up next, we're going to hit the rewind, and we're going to give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to see Brooks and Dunn. That's next here on 101 ESPN.
Back to more exclusive Blues training camp coverage on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are live at Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, right now is your chance to score a pair of tickets to see Brooks and Dunn with special guest David Lee Murphy on Friday, April 25th at the Enterprise Center. If you are texter number 101 with the correct answer to the following question at 314-399-9646, you are getting those tickets to see Brooks and Dunn. They just went on sale. Check out all the details at 101ESPN.com. Earlier today, T-Bone mentioned that there's a specific company that's going to be adding zip lines and pickleball Who is that company that's going to be adding that to their current infrastructure? If you have the correct answer to that question, your text number 101 at 314-399-9646. You are getting the pair of tickets to see Brooks and Dunn. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
Alex, over there, we talked to Matt Kessel in studio earlier today, the Blues' young defenseman. We also talked about Brendan Donovan, a potential contract extension. I was very excited about that possibility. The two of you poo-pooed it quite a lot. We also gave you reasons to believe in Quinn Mathews, the young Cardinals pitching prospect who has flown through the minor leagues this year.
Overly positive today, guys. Good job by all of you.
And is doing things that only Grayson Rodriguez, Tyler Glasnow,
Grayson Allen.
Now you're tripping people?
Dylan Cease, Patrick
Throwing
Sandoval,
bows?
and like 6 other guys have done over the last decade.
Only name you need to know about that is Logan Gilbert.
Pretty impressive year for him. Tonight, T-Bone, your Illini are in action against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. You're picking against them in your Pick'em Challenge. How do you feel about this one going in?
I'm very worried. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop Riolo. Their secondary is good, but if you don't have a pass rush, I don't know if you're able to defend that long in coverage. And then I just don't know about their offense. I was super excited after they beat Eastern Illinois, and now I'm realizing that was an FCS school. I think it's a race to 20. If they can get to 20 points, I think they'll be able to beat them. I just don't know if the offense is going to be able to do it. They're going to need some defense or special teams to get them a score.
Alex, this weekend, the Cardinals are back in action. They are going up against the Cleveland Guardians. It is the final home games of the season, final home stand of this season. Cleveland tonight, tomorrow, and then Sunday afternoon. There's the potential that this is the final time that Paul Goldschmidt and Matt Carpenter will be walking out onto the field in a Cardinals uniform as players at Busch Stadium. Do you believe that this will be the final weekend that we see that?
No. Matt Carpenter floating it out there that, oh, yeah, I'm open to playing in 2025, even if it's a part-time role. And Paul Goldschmidt has been doing that. I don't believe that at all. I think one for sure, I'd put it at like 75% both are Cardinals next season for this team. Because there's one thing that this team loves, and it is leadership. And guess what Goldschmidt and Mike Carpenter provide? Leadership.
I do not think that Matt Carpenter will be back next season. I think that they will replace him in that role that they have with a right-handed bat. I think it's going to be Lucan Baker that's in the same role that we've seen this year from Matt Carpenter. I would say it's above 50-50, though, that Goldie's back. I'm not saying they should bring him back. You guys know where I stand on that. I think I would not, but I think there's a decent chance that they end up bringing him back going into next season. On the other college football side of things, locally, Missouri will take on Vanderbilt tomorrow. Diego Pavia is a really good quarterback. He's dealing with some kind of a back issue, apparently, that's limited his mobility, but don't take him lightly. Vanderbilt, I know, is a typical bottom dweller in the SEC. They've got a really interesting offense this year. They can put up some points defensively. They're really stout, but they give up some big plays. This should be the week that Missouri's explosive passing game gets going. I expect a big game from Luther Burden. I think they win by 20+. That's why I picked him in the Pick'em Challenge this week as my 2-point play.
Root against that, ladies and gentlemen.
For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Did a great job this week. Jordan Deacon did a fantastic job for us back in the studio as well. We've been out here at the Centene Community Ice Center for Blues training camp. It's been fantastic to see the Blues back on the ice. Blues and Brews tonight. We'll see you guys out there. That's where the Fast Lane is broadcasting live. They are coming up next. You're on 101 ESPN.